a limit where it needs to feed. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns sour with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's your loss. See, I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python, grab what I like real fast. Choke until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see, matter of fact.
Cause I'm my own worst enemy. Only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed, and everything I do the best. And deep within my mind, you know I'll always manifest it.
Hello and welcome to My Mind Over Your Matter. My name is Rick. Let's turn on the cameras here. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Mine was okay. It wasn't so bad. Rested a lot. Yesterday my back was hurting, so I wasn't able to come on here to produce anything because when my back hurts that bad, I ain't gonna try to push it. So I just do what I can with what I got, and hope you guys enjoy it. That's all I can do. Let's see who I have here in the chat. LB, what's up? How you doing, man? Just laying low today. It's Sunday, so leave that for the baby Jesus. It's his day. Did a little rearranging a little bit, not too much, but I added more candles to the front here. So it's like all this is candle, and I have our big Christmas candle for the 2025 season, and ready to rock and roll for today's show. Big thank you, Kayla. What's up? How you doing? Hope you're doing good. I got my medicine ready. I got 2 of them because I think I'm gonna need both. I haven't smoked today. I like to smoke on my show better than I do smoking alone. It's because I like to talk and smoke, and I feel like I get the medicine more inside of me, and it feels much better. And yeah, how you doing, Kayla? You're back from the hospital. Yay! Well, I'm glad you're back home. Home is where you're more safe. People think that they're safe in the hospital. In reality, that's the worst place to be at. It is. Because you're only there because you're in a not doing too good condition, right? So you go to the hospital for help. But in reality, do they really help? Or are they really helping themselves? Makes you wonder what is happening with the hospitals. A lot of bitches in the hospital, especially the nurses, because I know Terry was explaining about Kayla having a fucked up nurse. I had plenty of fucked up nurses. There's nurses that I had to send to fucking hell. And I said it right in their motherfucking face. I go, you know what you could do? You could get the fuck out of my room. How about that? It's like, because I'm stuck in this room for a whole motherfucking year. Bitch, you just got to come here for 8 hours to work. I'm here 24 hours a day. So I ain't dealing with your shit. Sometimes you got to step up to these bully nurses because they be acting stupid sometimes. Yeah, I heard Terry was saying yesterday. Um, but yeah, be careful with that too, because motherfuckers like to misdiagnose also. So it's like, who knows, right? That's why I don't go to the hospital. I'd rather go see the doctors. Like, I've had my issues here where, yes, I should go to the emergency room, but I know best that if I go to the emergency room, all I'm going to do is waste about 48 to 60 hours of my life in the emergency room. Then they're going to probably send me upstairs to be admitted, and then I'm going to stay there for like a week or two. I don't got time for all that. You know, I could do all this shit on my own time without having to be laying up in a bed in a hospital 24 hours a day. Like, I don't think so. They were very nasty to you. Yeah, these, it's the time of the year. These nurses, it seems like they turn more evil instead of nice. Oh yeah, they confirmed it. Yeah, they will know by X-rays. They'll see it, and hopefully, you could get over that because that's a really hard one. Um, I do have some stuff lined up for us to watch, and they're pretty much all Tyson De La Cruz. It's like a catch up day with Tyson because I was not here yesterday. And let's see, is there anything else here? Um, I mean, there's weird shit on here, but nothing too crazy. Um, actually, nah, nothing too crazy going on in the world. I mean, besides Netflix buying Warner Brothers, that's kind of crazy. Um, and let me see, Tim Pool getting shot up. Uh, you knew that was gonna happen. Let's see. All right, yeah. So it's just a Tyson. It's a Tyson show here. Here we go. Did I watch Survivor Series? Yes, I did. Did I like it? Not really. I don't like the cage match. I think it's just too long, and it's just. I think they should go back to the way they used to do it back in the days with the Survivor Series, where it's like elimination. If you pin someone or submit them, that they have to leave the ring. So it could be like 5-on-1. It could be like 4-on-2. It just. I think that format's much better than keeping them all stuck in a cage, and then like half an hour later they start the match. Yeah, for the past half hour they were just beating them like selves up the whole time, and then you're gonna start the match when the last person comes in. I think that's stupid. I don't like that. I don't like that concept. I mean, it's nice. The cage matches are cool, but not the Survivor Series cage matches. I think it's just a waste of time, and I didn't like the. I didn't like it too much. And then you had a mystery man come in and interfere in the match. And the guy has such broad shoulders. He really reminds me of Austin Theory. But, they're going to play it off Like, who else could be able to jump in that cage that fast and come down and do the moves that he did and then pounce right back out of that cage onto the floor? No other than Austin Theory. He's probably one of the more athletic wrestlers than anyone that they could think of being the Masked Man. So, but that's just my thoughts there. But let's see here. Let's go ahead and set this up for Tyson. So here we go. So here it is. Let me set this up first. Let me resize it. Let me just bring it back to me for a second so I could resize all these here. Because this is 4 videos we're going to watch. Maybe I'll find something paranormal since Kayla's here. We can watch something paranormal. I know Kayla loves the paranormal. Kayla should go paranormal hunting. There was like, if I wanted, because I wanted to do some kind of like community service type of thing. So I was thinking of doing like my community service hours. If I was to do any of that, I would go ghost hunting and go to the New England Paranormal Society and probably offers my services, to go on investigations and to help with investigations as far as like with my energy and what I'm capable of doing. I would be a big pickup and a big plus for a lot of these paranormal investigators out there because I'm really sensitive to energy. I'm tired of the No Kings protest. We actually drove through. Oh Lord, you guys drove through a No Kings. They're still doing that shit. The mystery attacker was Trick Williams. Nah, I don't think it was Trick Williams. Trick Williams can't jump up the gate that fast. He's too bottom heavy. You know what I mean? The guy that jumped over the fence. You look at the legs. His legs are really skinny. They're not big. And Trick Williams is a lot taller than the person that actually went in that ring. Because the height, it's the height thing. If it would have been a tall person, then I'd be like, okay, yeah, it could possibly be Trick Williams, but the height of the individual is just too short for Trick Williams. Oh no. Yeah, that's crazy. They still doing that crazy shit. Damn the No Kings. That's so stupid. That make no sense. All right, let's go ahead and watch this of Tyson De La Cruz, and then we'll keep talking.
Several tenants of 7500 South Shore Drive stood outside the building demanding change.
It's just bad we being treated like this.
I have never been through nothing like this in my life.
How are they going to move? Whatever help may be on the way, these tenants are expected to be moving as the temperatures are dropping and as we move deeper into winter.
America, the mainstream media is trying to spin a heartbreaking story about poor tenants being evicted from a South Shore apartment building because of Trump's ICE raids. But here's what they're not telling you. These residents have been living in a foreclosed building that's been falling apart for years, infested with TDA gang members, and now they're demanding the city of Chicago bail them out with taxpayer money. The building at 7500 South Shore Drive was purchased by an out-of-state investment group, went into foreclosure when they didn't make payments, and Wells Fargo had to step in and secure the asset. But instead of taking responsibility and finding new housing through their Section 8 case managers, these tenants are playing the victim card and demanding $7,500 each for relocation.
What? $7,500 to relocate? Are you kidding me? Where the fuck are you gonna move to?
The South Shore apartment building that was raided by ICE say they are now being evicted.
What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This story perfectly shows how the left-wing media creates false narratives to attack Trump's immigration policies while ignoring the real issues of failed property management and tenant responsibility. Let me break down the real timeline of what happened to 7500 South Shore Drive, because the leftist lamestream media deliberately is misleading you about the cause and effect here.
This has nothing to do with the ICE situation. This building has been deteriorating for over the past year.
Even the tenants themselves admit this has nothing to do with the ICE situation. The building has been deteriorating for years, but somehow the media keeps framing this as
Trump's
The problem is the media.
cause all these people to lose their housing.
They say it was also a surprise to see an eviction notice posted in the building the day
Tyson's
before
too funny.
It
Thanksgiving.
is bad we being treated like this. And we did nothing wrong. We don't deserve this. That ain't right. That ain't right.
the judge appointed a receiver for the building because financial problems with the owner, not because of any ICE raid. This is a standard foreclosure process that happens when property owners can't make their loan payments to the bank. The building was purchased by Trinity Flood, an out-of-state investor from Wisconsin who clearly had no idea what they were getting into when they purchased this property on South Shore. They took a $27 million loan backed by Wells Fargo, couldn't make payments, and now the bank foreclosed to recover their investment. This is basic real estate economics. If you can't pay your mortgage, the bank takes the property away. It's absolutely nothing to do with immigration enforcement. Now, let me tell you about the real reason this building has been falling apart. It's been infested by gang activity for years, specifically Tren de Aragua gang members who have been using this property for criminal operations. The building has been known as a problem property with Chicago PD long before ICE raids happened. We're talking about drug dealings, weapons trafficking, violent crime that made this building uninhabitable for law-abiding residents.
Days after ICE agents conducted a late-night military-style raid on a South Shore apartment building, congressional lawmakers offered the press a tour inside. On the same day, Governor J.B. Pritzker told a national audience that the search for a few criminals quickly turned into a siege.
They were going after a few gang members, and instead they broke windows, they broke down doors, they ransacked the place.
When federal agents conducted that raid back in September, they weren't targeting random immigrants. They were going after gang members and criminals who've been terrorizing the building for years. The raid was a result of criminal activity, not the case of the building's problems. But instead of acknowledging gang activity, weapons trafficking, and drugs destroying their living conditions, these tenants are now trying to blame Trump's immigration policies for their situation. It's a complete reversal of cause and effect designed to generate sympathy and taxpayer-funded assistance. The truth is, if these tenants have been working with law enforcement to get gang members out of their building years ago, they might still have a habitable place to live. Instead, they tolerated criminal activity until it attracted federal attention. Let's talk about what actually happened with this foreclosure, because this is a perfect example of how irresponsible property investments affect everyone involved. Trinity Flood brought this property portfolio for $20 million in 2020, taking on a $27 million loan from Wells Fargo. Apparently, she was an out-of-state investor who had no experience managing properties in high-crime Chicago neighborhoods.
They say a judge granted an emergency motion from Wells Fargo that was supported by the city of Chicago, saying that all tenants need to vacate by December 12th.
This wasn't some heartless bank trying to hurt poor people. This was a lender trying to protect their asset and secure a property that has become a public safety hazard. The city of Chicago supported Wells Fargo's motion because they understand that this building is no longer habitable. When you have broken elevators, no heat, no electricity, standing water, and sewage problems, that is not a place where people should be living. But instead of accepting the reality and working with their Section 8 case manager to find new housing, these tenants formed a union. They formed a union, you guys, to demand $7,500 each from taxpayers to relocate. They want the city to pay for them to leave the building they should have left months ago when the conditions became uninhabitable. Here's some free advice from me to those tenants that the media won't give you. If you're on Section 8 housing assistance, you have options. You don't need to sit in a foreclosed building demanding taxpayer handouts.
We need help in this building.
Wow.
It's not just me. It's a group of us. It's still a lot of us that's left in this building.
Every Section 8 recipient
they need
has
to
a
get in
case
contact with their
manager whose
agent.
job is to help them find suitable housing when their current situation becomes untenable. Instead of forming tenant
Yeah, they gotta
unions
go
and
to their
demanding
agent.
money from the city and more handouts that they've been used to their entire life, these residents should be working with their case manager to transfer their vouchers to habitable properties.
In
Yeah.
addition to sending a letter of demand to the receiver appointed to the building, the tenants union tells us they've also sent letters to the mayor and governor's offices to see if they can lend any help.
They are demanding
Mayor, governor, why they're
$7,500
not
each to
getting in contact
relocate
with
in
their
the
case
same
agent?
neighborhood. But that's not how Section 8 works. Your housing voucher is portable. You can use it anywhere in the city or even transfer it to another municipality. But you're so used to the drug activity, and maybe you're getting drugs in this neighborhood, so you don't want to leave. You don't need a cash payout to move. The fact that they're specifically demanding to stay in the same neighborhood suggests they're more interested in getting paid than actually solving their housing problem. If your priority was safety, habitable housing, you'd take your voucher and move to a better area immediately. Now,
All
let
you
me
gotta do is
describe
take
the
your
actual
voucher.
conditions these
These
tenants are
people,
living
they
in,
don't know what
because
they're
this will
doing.
help you
That's the
understand why
problem.
the building needs to be vacated immediately.
There is still no heat, no electricity, no elevator, and no
Yeah, lay
help
down, get
finding
some
other
rest.
places to live. Someone shared photos inside the building last week.
I have never been through nothing like this in my life.
No heat, no electricity, no working elevator, and
Why
according to
did they get in
reports,
contact with
sewage
their agent?
backups into the units and standing water throughout
It just
the
doesn't
building.
make any
These
sense
are
to me.
third world living conditions that no one should tolerate, regardless of their housing situation.
They have not fixed the lights in the hallway. It is dark. It is
The
very
city
dark
would
in
have
the
stepped
building.
in.
It's
They had to
scary,
do
it's dangerous.
inspections.
Ceilings caving in, structural
This was never
damage, and the
past
building being
inspection.
destroyed from the inside and out. This isn't a housing crisis.
The
This is a
Section 8
public
goes
safety
out for
emergency. These
inspections.
people are risking
this-
their
it
lives
doesn't
to
make any
stay in a
sense to
building
me.
that should have been condemned months ago. But instead of prioritizing their safety, their children's safety, they're staying in these dangerous conditions because they think they can leverage the situation into taxpayer-funded payouts. This city has every right to order an emergency evacuation when the building becomes this dangerous. This
Yeah.
isn't about punishing tenants. This is about preventing deaths from building
makes no
collapse,
sense.
fires, or carbon monoxide poisoning. Now let's talk about the lamestream media spinning this story, because it's a perfect example of how they create false narratives to attack Trump's policies.
I got a gun put in my face and everything. And me personally, I don't appreciate that at all.
Democrat lawmakers are given press tours and
When
blaming
you
ICE
have a
agents
gun
for
put into your face,
ransacking the
you
place.
don't act like
But these
that.
conditions existed long before federal raids. Broken elevators, sewage problems, drugs and weapon trafficking, and structural damage weren't caused by one night of law enforcement operations. The media is deliberately connecting the foreclosure and evictions to ICE raids to create sympathy for
Wow.
tenants and criticize
I'm
Trump's
telling you, the
immigration
media is
policies.
horrible.
But the timeline
They're
doesn't
so
support their
horrible.
narrative. The building was already in foreclosure proceedings before the raids even happened. This is classic left-wing media manipulation. Take a complex situation involving property, investments, gang activity, municipal housing policies, then blame everything on Trump immigration enforcement to generate outrage and clicks. The real story here is about failed property management, irresponsible lending, and tenants who tolerate criminal activity until it destroyed their living situation. But that doesn't fit Trump is mean to immigrants narrative that they want to push. This situation perfectly illustrates everything wrong with Chicago's leadership and their approach to housing policies. Instead of addressing gang activity that made this building uninhabitable, city officials ignored the problem until federal agents had to step in. Our good friend Brandon Mohawk Johnson is promising to work overtime to help these tenants. But where is this urgency when the building was being destroyed by gang activity? Where was the city's concern when elevators were breaking down and sewage was backing up into units? The city supported Wells Fargo emergency motion to vacate the building because they know it's uninhabitable. But now they're also promising to help tenants to stay in the same neighborhood. You cannot have it both ways. Either the building is too dangerous for human habitation or it's not. This is what happens when you have leadership more concerned with political optics than public safety. They let problems fester until they become emergencies, then blame federal authorities when they're forced forced to take action. America, the South Shore apartment situation is not a story about ICE raids destroying people's lives. It's a story about failed property investment, gang activity, and tenants who are now playing the victim card instead of taking responsibility for their housing situation. These residents have been living in uninhabitable conditions for months, tolerating criminal activity that made their building a target for federal law enforcement. Now, the building is in foreclosure and they're being forced to move. They want taxpayers to pay them $7,500 each to relocate. But to my victim tenants, that is not how Section 8 housing assistance works. You have a voucher, you have options. You can work with your case manager to find safe, habitable housing anywhere in the city. You don't need a special payout to exercise your existing housing rights. The lamestream media is using this story to attack Trump's immigration policies, but the timeline doesn't support their narrative. The building was already failing before any ICE raids happened. The foreclosure was already in process before federal agents arrived. What we're seeing is a perfect example of how Democrats create dependency instead of solutions. Instead of encouraging these residents to use their existing resources to find better housing, they're promising government bailouts and encouraging victim mentality. The real victims here are the taxpayers who are being asked to fund relocation payments for people who already have housing assistance, and the law-abiding residents who had to live with gang activity because city officials refused to address the problem. Let me know what you guys think about this. Drop it down in the comments section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you, Tyson, for that upload. I was just boiling inside listening, because I'm so used to having Tyson on Thursday. I would have just been like, motherfucker, listen to me. These people could go to their agents and let them know. First of all, this doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense because first thing they usually do, especially with Section 8, they do inspections. They go to your apartment. They do inspection on the building and in the whoever's the recipient of the Section 8, they get their apartment inspected every year. So this little problem that I just saw in this video doesn't seem like a very recent thing. This thing looks like it's been years of neglect, especially the elevator. Okay. It makes zero sense that there's no maintenance in that building. Where's the fire officials doing their fire inspections? Because that needs to be done yearly also. Fire inspections, especially if you're 6 floors or higher, has to have fire inspections. And it's mandatory every year. I used to run a commercial building down south in South Florida, so I kind of know this stuff. So that's what you call neglect. The previous owner did not give a fuck. He didn't even care if the people were living in there. Doesn't care. It's going to be hard times for these people because if they were on Section 8, they easily could have gone to their agent and let them know, listen, these conditions are not good. I can't live here. My kids can't live here. They would have sent out an inspector to go and check. So this way, this story doesn't. It's like it seems like it's paid and brought to you by the Democratic Party of Illinois. And then they try to blame Trump. It's the ICE now. It's all ICE fault. Look what they did. They destroyed our elevators. They graffitied the walls. They have left water everywhere. The doors are and the walls are all falling apart. That's the Democrats. That's all they know how to do is blame. They play the blame game. It was all ICE fault. They have to pay for it. Then you have this stupid whoever company from out of state purchasing for how much was it? 27 million or something. Wouldn't you go and inspect the buildings before you make any purchase like that? It doesn't make sense. The whole fucking story does not make sense. Like, break it down in your minds. Like, if you were in that, you could astral project. Let's do this real quick, all of us. Let's go to that building. We just saw the video. You could astral project to that apartment and into that building, and you could see that it's not been taken care of for more than 5 years. Like, this place is just, it's not good. It's not safe. It's really run down, and I blame the people that live there because they're a bunch of pigs. Because you would clean up even if there's no one around to, if you are a clean person, you would clean up. If you're a dirty person, you're just dirty. And there's a lot of people out there that are like that. Sometimes that's a mental illness too. And it is very poisonous because a lot of people are not clean. But don't give an excuse for these people to come and be like, oh, we're going after the city, we're going after the state, we're blaming Trump because it's ICE's fault. Okay. So ICE went there and ran down the whole building for it to look as shitty as it looks. You want to blame Trump too? Because we could do that. Might as well blame Trump. Blame Trump when you're having a bad day and you're trying to figure out how your life is going to be and you can't figure it out. Blame Trump. I think that makes sense, right? That's what the Democrats do. Blame Trump for everything. Everything? Everything. Oh, Lord. All right, let's catch up on some more Tyson De La Cruz. Let me go ahead and set this one up, and let's watch together.
92,000 pounds. This is the largest seizure
Holy
of this
shit.
kind in the country. Nobody's ever been able to do this.
America, we just witnessed the largest synthetic drug bust in U.S. history. And it's going to blow your mind how this 26-year-old college graduate built a $4.7 million drug empire using a substance that you can literally buy at your local gas station. Maxwell Horvath wasn't cooking meth in some desert trailer. He was extracting deadly compounds from kratom, that legal opioid they sell next to energy drinks at truck stops. But here's the kicker. While he was making millions turning legal kratom into illegal synthetic opioids 13 times stronger than morphine, he was also stockpiling enough weapons and explosives to arm a small militia. We're talking about 92,000 pounds of synthetic drugs, fully automatic weapons, and improvised explosive devices that can level entire city blocks.
A drug bust in Brevard County means 92,000 pounds of an illegal substance are off the streets. Several agencies teamed up here to make the largest seizure in the country.
What is up, guys? Tyson De La Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This story perfectly shows how criminals are exploiting legal loopholes to create deadly drugs while our government sits back and lets gas stations sell opioids to teenagers. Let me break down exactly what Sheriff Wayne Ivey found when they raided Maxwell Horvath's operation in Palm Bay, Florida, because this wasn't just a drug lab. This was a full-scale chemical weapons facility disguised as a legitimate business.
This thing looked like Breaking Bad on steroids is what it looked like. He had it lined up with all sorts of different chambers and rooms and sterile environments that his company would ship it out.
Sheriff Ivey called it Breaking Bad on steroids. When you see the footage, you'll understand why. This wasn't some backyard meth lab. Horval had created a sophisticated operation with sterile environments, compression machines, and multiple chambers for extracting and processing synthetic compounds.
92,000 pounds of substance used to make a drone known as 7-OH, a drug that's 13 times stronger than morphine.
Think about that for a second, guys. Morphine is already one of the most powerful painkillers in medical use, and this kid was mass producing something 13 times more potent and selling it like it was a vitamin supplement. But here's what really gets me. Horval thought he was outsmarting the system by running his operation through a company called Overseas Organics and shipping products out of state. He genuinely believes that as long as he didn't sell directly to Florida residents, he wasn't breaking any laws. This is the kind of criminal genius that we're dealing with here. Now, let me explain something that most people don't understand about Kratom, because this is the foundation of Horval's entire empire, and it's something that you need to know. Kratom is sold legally in gas stations, smoke shops, and online retailers across America. It's marketed as a natural supplement, a herbal remedy, or alternative to coffee. But here's what they don't tell you. Kratom is essentially a legal opioid that affects the same brain receptors as morphine, oxycodone, and heroin. At lower doses, Kratom acts like a stimulant similar to coffee, but at higher doses, it becomes a full-blown opioid that causes respiratory depression, addiction, overdose deaths, and is completely unregulated. Teenagers can walk into a gas station and buy it without any age verification or medical supervision. What Horval figured out is how to extract specific alkaloids from Kratom and concentrate them into synthetic compounds that are exponentially more powerful than the original plant. He was taking something that was already addictive and dangerous and turning it into a substance that could kill someone with a single dose. This is exactly why Florida recently passed an emergency law banning 7-OH. But then Horval had already built a multi-million-dollar empire exploiting this legal loophole, and he's not the only one. There are probably dozens and dozens of similar operations across the country right now, extracting deadly components from legal substances and selling them online. Now let's talk about the weapons cache that they found, because this tells you everything you need to know about the kind of money this synthetic drug operation generates and the criminal mindset behind it. Look at these guns: 12 rifles, 17 pistols, 3 shotguns, 1 revolver, 2 fully automatic submachine guns, 3 suppressors, and thousands of rounds of ammunition. This wasn't a gun collection. This was an army designed for warfare.
This guy was either looking to engage war or looking to arm those and furnish to those that are. And you see, even had, as you can see in the video, even had a 50 cal on a tripod, ready to do serious damage.
That's an anti-material weapon designed to destroy vehicles and penetrate armor. Now, I've met people like Maxwell Horval before, young guys who make stupid money from legal drug dealing operations, then blow it on custom guns, exotic cars, and military grade equipment. They think they're untouchable because they're technically operating with legal gray areas, so they start living like drug cartel leaders. But here's what really concerns me. Horval graduated from college and immediately started Overseas Organics in 2019. This means he went from being a regular college student to running a multi-million-dollar synthetic drug operation in just a few years. This is the kind of rapid escalation suggests he had serious connections or backing from organized crime. If the weapons weren't bad enough, they even found explosives. This case went from drug trafficking to potential terrorism.
And provides explosive devices. 5 IEDs were located on this property where the warrant was initiated at. Not to mention grenade simulators and 50 pounds of precursor chemicals to make it explosive.
The police chief said these are things that the military are utilizing and other countries are utilizing all over the world to take out populations of people. This is terrorist level weaponry. IEDs are the same devices that killed thousands of American soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. And this 26-year-old college graduate had 5 of them. 5 of them sitting in his drug lab in suburban Florida. And here's the most disturbing part. Horval already served 2 years in federal prison in 2017 for possession of an explosive device and trafficking MDMA. He was just 19 years old when he was first arrested for explosives, which means he's been building bombs since he was a teenager.
Oh
So
my
this
God.
wasn't some college kid who got over his head. This is a career criminal who spent his entire adult life perfecting the art of manufacturing drugs and explosives. And somehow he was able to build a massive operation right under everybody's nose. Let me explain how Harvault's business model worked, because this exposes a massive problem with how we regulate synthetic drugs in America. Harvault was operating under the theory as long as he didn't sell directly to Florida residents, he wasn't violating Florida's emergency ban on 7-OH. So he would take orders from people who came to his facility, but then ship the products to addresses in other states where substances weren't banned. This is the same loophole that synthetic drug manufacturers have been exploiting for decades. They create new chemical compounds faster than legislation can ban them, and then use interstate commerce laws to avoid local restrictions.
Had materials to create large amounts of explosives, along with 3
Holy
dozen
shit,
guns,
that's just all
including
those
2 submachine guns
That's
and
a lot of
thousands of
guns.
rounds of ammo.
But what made Harvault's operation
why do you need
different
so
was the
much?
scale and sophistication. This wasn't some guy mixing chemicals in his
Why you need so
garage. He had
much?
created a legitimate looking business with professional equipment, sterilized environments, and industrial scale production capabilities. The fact that he was willing to give undercover agents tours of his facility shows how confident he was in his legal theory. He genuinely believed that he found a way to mass produce synthetic opioids without breaking federal law. The scary part is he might have been right if Florida hadn't passed that emergency ban. There are probably similar operations running right now in states that we haven't caught with the latest synthetic drug trends. The takedown of Harvault's operation required coordination between multiple federal and local agencies. Just shows how serious this case really was.
Our agents worked together, made buys from Horvath. He actually even gave them a tour of his business.
The Brevard County Sheriff's Office worked together with the DEA, ATF, and Palm Bay Police Department for months to build this case.
He's going to have automatically 36 counts possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, 1 count possession of short-barreled rifle, 2 counts possession of short-barreled machine gun, and then more charges coming for the explosive. So
the sheriff said he's looking to spend the rest of his life in federal prison, and frankly, that is exactly where he belongs. This case represents the largest seizure of synthetic opioids in U.S. history, with an estimated street value of $4.7 million. But the real value is in shutting down an operation that could have killed thousands of people with contaminated or overdosed products. Harvault's operation represents a much larger problem that Americans don't understand yet. The synthetic drug epidemic
Look at that
is
weapon on
fueled
the-
by
on the
substances
stand.
that are
Are you kidding
technically
me?
legal and readily available. Right now, you can walk into almost any gas station in America and buy kratom, synthetic cannabinoids, and other psychoactive substances that are marketed as legal highs or herbal supplements. These products are completely unregulated, untested, and often more dangerous than traditional illegal drugs. The people selling these substances aren't pharmacists or doctors. They're gas station clerks and smoke shop employees who have no idea what they're selling
Especially
or
gas
what health
stations
risks there are. And the people buying them
and
are often
bodegas.
teenagers who think legal means safe. What Horvault figured out was how to take these legal substances and extract the most dangerous compounds to create synthetic drugs that are exponentially more powerful and addictive. The fact that he was able to build a $4.7 million empire in just a few years shows how profitable this business model is. And the fact that he was stockpiling weapons and explosives shows how dangerous these operations can become when they start making serious cash. America, the Maxwell Horvault case should be a wake-up call about the synthetic drug epidemic that's happening right now under our noses. This 26-year-old college graduate built a multi-million-dollar drug empire by exploiting legal loopholes and extracting deadly compounds from substances that you can buy at gas stations. The fact that kratom is still legal and widely available shows how behind our regulatory system is. We're allowing gas stations to sell opioids to teenagers while wondering why we have an addiction crisis in America. Horvault's weapon cache and explosive stockpile shows these aren't just drug dealers. They're potential terrorists who are willing to use violence to protect their operation. When someone has 5 IEDs and a 50 caliber rifle, they're not planning to go quietly if law enforcement comes a knocking. The good news is that federal agents are finally taking these synthetic drug operations seriously. The coordination between the DEA, ATF, and local law enforcement shows they understand the scope of this particular threat. But in my opinion, we need to do more than just arresting individual operators. We need to close the legal loopholes that allow these substances to be sold in the first place. We need to regulate kratom and other synthetic compounds like the dangerous drugs they actually are. And we need to educate parents about what their kids can legally buy at gas stations, because most people have no idea that their teenagers can walk into a truck stop and buy substances that are more addictive than prescription opioids. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
That's crazy. $4.7 million. This kid grew an empire, you know, and it got shattered, of course, because, man, that was a lot of guns. I'm sorry. Like, what he was waiting for, like a zombie apocalypse or something? I mean, what was he setting up for? The end of the world? It's like Survivor or something. I don't understand the caliber of the weapons. Holy shit! He had like armor piercing weapons. That's like weapons that could attack tanks. Like it could do damage to tanks or to any aircraft, pretty much. I don't know, man. What's these? I feel like I'm living in a dream, and then this is all like the nightmares that I'm having in my dreams. Like what? What the hell? 90,000? No, is it 92,000 pounds of that kratom, whatever drug? That's crazy. But the crazy part was the weapons and the explosives. Like, what are we doing with explosives? You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know how people could go to the gas stations to buy that shit. I don't understand it. How could they go to the gas station and they be like, "Yeah, I want to buy this," and then they take it, and then it just makes them feel a certain way. I don't want to feel that certain way, especially it's like not safe. It's not tested. It's not like FDA tested, or it's not, lab tested or nothing. It's just out of a kitchen sink, and here you go, put it into a capsule. Like, what the fuck? I don't know. We're living in weird times. I'm still thinking the amount of weaponry he had, because he had a lot of motherfucking guns. I'm like, first of all, you only have two hands. Okay, like, what are you gonna do? Is this for like you're doing like a real life Predator movie? Like, remember Predator? They go out with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they go out with these weapons and stuff. But they were part of a military that was like an operation they were doing. And what a great movie too! The original is always the best. The new Badlands it's a sleep fest. Like you definitely fall asleep, and then through the movie. Yeah, it's not. It's a Disney movie, so it's not the greatest. So it is what it is. But you're gonna be reading a lot of subtitles in Badlands, and it should put you to sleep. It's a good movie to fall asleep to, for sure. $4.7 million. Motherfucker made a lot of money quick, but got sloppy and was too I don't know, he got high off of his supply or something. Invited all the undercovers and everybody to come on in and check everything out. Look what I'm doing. Look what I can do. And I made $4.7 million. Ha ha ha. I don't understand what the fuck is going on with society. I really don't. All right, let's go ahead and watch a third episode of Tyson De La Cruz.
It's true. A Somali fraud ring in Minnesota stole over $1 billion from Medicaid.
The total amount of fraud could total up to more than $8 billion.
Oh my God.
America, a whistleblower just risked her
$8
life to expose
billion?
Ilhan I Married My Brother Omar as a complete fraud. And what she revealed is going to blow your mind. Out of 78 people charged in Minnesota's billion-dollar fraud scheme, 76, get this, were from Somalia, not Somaliland. That is not a coincidence. That is a cultural pattern. The whistleblower explains that Somaliland people believe in the rule of law and thrive in America through legitimate work, while Somalians bring that same manipulation, deception, and fraud tactics that destroy their country. But here's the most explosive part. Ilhan I Married My Brother Omar has been lying to Americans about democracy while ignoring 6 million prosecuted Muslims in Somaliland and refuses to demand accountability for the billions of dollars stolen in her own district. Instead, she calls everybody who questions the fraud a racist. While the whistleblower exposes the truth Democrats have been hiding, culture determines crime, and Ilhan I Married My Brother is protecting these criminals.
That's funny, Tyson. But it's the truth. It's sickening.
Feel like our esteem or confidence is shaken by a bigoted fool, making a mockery of the White House, of our nation.
What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This whistleblower just destroyed the progressive narrative that questioning fraud is racism. 76 out of 78 defendants prove that culture matters. Let me start by explaining something most Americans don't understand. There is a massive difference between the Republic of Somaliland and Somalia, and that difference explains everything about the fraud that we've been seeing in Minnesota.
So the Republic of Somaliland is a country in East Africa, in the Horn of Africa, by the Gulf of Eden, a very strategic location.
Somaliland is a separate country with a distinct culture that truly believes in the rule of law. It's embedded in their customary laws and cultural identity. Somalia, on the other hand, wants to erase Somaliland from the map because they want their strategic location by the Gulf of Aden.
One of the big differences between Somaliland and Somalia is the adherence to the rule of law. The people of Somaliland truly believe in the rule of law. This is something that we have always adhered to.
I reported on this.
Customary laws.
This cultural difference isn't subtle, it's fundamental. Somaliland people believe in following rules and building legitimate businesses. Somalia has been in civil war for 4 decades with no functioning government or legal system.
You can look at the Feeding Our Future scam. I think out of the 78, I think 76 are from Somalia. And I think 2 are Americans. That also shows you that there's a distinctiveness here.
This is not a coincidence. This is a cultural pattern that reflects Somalia's complete disregard for the rule of law. Now, let me explain why this fraud pattern exists, because Sonia's analysis is absolutely devastating to the progressive narrative about immigration.
And there is a common trust amongst the people of Somaliland. You can see that because Somalilanders believe in the rule of law, they thrive in countries like the United States of America. We have people from Somaliland who are in America, who have very good, high-paying jobs, very decent jobs.
This is what happens when you have a culture that values legal compliance and hard work.
We used to wonder, why are people not talking about this? We were always seeing stories, Somali gangs, Somali murders, Somali theft.
Sonia wasn't surprised by the Minnesota fraud scheme because she's been watching this pattern for years. Somalia groups, Somalia murderers, Somalia theft. She was wondering why nobody was talking about it and how small groups of Somalians were getting away with so much crime. You know what's crazy? While we're talking about people who exploit government systems and take advantage of vulnerable communities, there's another area where people are getting taken advantage of all the time: Medicare. If you're 65 or older, you know how many people try to manipulate the system or push you towards plans that benefit them instead of actually helping you. This is exactly why Chapter is different. Unlike these fraudsters who exploit vulnerable people and government programs, Chapter connects you with trusted advisors who actually work for your benefit, not the insurance companies. No manipulation. They won't exploit your from people who actually care. Now back to how these fraudsters silence their critics.
I think the people of Somalia are a direct reflection of the Somalian government and its ability to manipulate, its ability to deceive, its ability to act vulnerable, to always blame, scapegoat, and gaslight.
This is the key insight. People of Somalia are a direct reflection of their government's ability to manipulate, deceive, act vulnerable, blame others, scapegoat, and gaslight. These aren't just criminal tactics, they're cultural patterns learned from decades of corrupt governance. Now, let me tell you about the intimidation tactics that Somalians use to silence anyone who speaks about their fraud and criminal activity, because this explains why the Minnesota fraud went on for so long.
For example, if I spoke out about Somalia, this is the names they call me. They call me a Christian lover, Galra. They say that you are secessionist. They say you are separatist. So only the strong can truly withstand the onslaught. The attack is so massive and vast.
They accuse you of being anti-Muslim and anti-Black. These are the same exact tactics that Ilhan I Married My Brother uses to weaponize identity politics to silence legitimate criticism.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
The attacks are so massive and coordinated that even strong people get silenced. When a white American is accused of being anti-Muslim or anti-Black for questioning fraud, they back down. This is exactly how the Minnesota fraud was able to continue on for so many years. Anyone who questioned it was immediately labeled as a racist. This is the same playbook that we saw with the Feeding Our Futures investigation. When Minnesota Department of Education officials tried to investigate suspicious applications, they were accused of racial discrimination and threatened with lawsuits. The fear of being called a racist allowed billions and billions of dollars to be stolen. Now let's talk about Ilhan I Married My Brother Omar, because Sonia's testimony about her is absolutely devastating and exposes her as a complete fraud.
Ilhan Omar is someone that I know isn't telling the American people the truth. She is in the Democratic Party. She talks about democracy. She talks about human rights. But Ilhan Omar disregards 6 to 8 million people that are Muslims, by the way, that are Black, by the way, that are found in Somaliland. She called us Somali Iskusheg, meaning those who call themselves Somali. Ilhan Omar has lied to the American people. I don't truly know how to give back to America, but I know that I'm an American patriot, that when we had nothing, this country gave me everything.
She's hoping that justice knocks on Omar's door very, very soon, which suggests there's more coming out about Omar's involvement or acknowledgement of the Minnesota fraud schemes. Here's the most damning part. Omar hasn't demanded any accountability for the massive fraud happening in her own district. Instead, she's pointing fingers and calling everybody a racist and an Islamophobe. This, my friends, is classic deflection to protect the fraud network.
Well, now investigators are tracking the web of fraud to other Minnesota Democrats, such as Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Many of the suspects linked to the scheme live in her district, including a restaurant owner who hosted events for her. He has since been convicted of stealing $12 million in COVID funds.
Think about this for a second. Dollars was stolen from programs meant to feed hungry children in Omar's district, and she's been completely silent about demanding accountability. Instead, she's defending the community from Islamophobia while taxpayer money funds terrorism overseas. People from Somaliland are highly prosecuted, which is why so many of them don't speak up about the fraud that they witnessed. They fear retaliation from the Somalian community and their political allies like Ilhan I Married My Brother Omar. This is one of the main reasons Sonia had to remain anonymous for this particular interview. She's literally risking her life to tell the truth about what's happening in Minnesota. This is the largest fraud scheme in American history, and it happened because people were too afraid to speak out. Fraud involved meal programs, housing assistance, and behavioral health services, all programs designed to help vulnerable people. Instead, the money went to luxury cars, overseas real estate, and funding al-Shabaab terrorists in Somalia. Now let me connect this to debate, because Sonia's culture matters and not all immigrant communities are the same. When ICE conducted Operation Metro Surge in Minneapolis, they arrested people with convictions for fraud, vehicle theft, and criminal sexual conduct with a minor. These aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a pattern that reflects culture attitudes towards law and authority. The fact that 76 out of 78 fraud defendants are from Somalia, while people from Somaliland thrive through legitimate work, proves that culture determines outcomes. This isn't about race or religion. This is about whether your culture values the rule of law or teaches you to manipulate the systems.
There's no question, Marnie, that the early signals around this fraud were ignored or people looked the other way.
Nobody was fired despite the billions in fraud, which shows the political protection these schemes enjoy. America, this is something that Democrats and mainstream media have been hiding. There's a fundamental culture difference between Somaliland and Somalia, and that difference explains the fraud patterns that we're seeing in Minnesota. This isn't racism, guys. This is reality. Ilhan, I married my brother Omar, is a complete fraud who's been lying to the American people while ignoring millions of prosecuted Muslims in Somaliland. She hasn't demanded accountability for the billion-dollar fraud in her district because she's too busy calling critics racist and Islamophobes. The silencing tactics used by the Somalian community, accusations of racism and Islamophobia, allowed this fraud to continue for years. Anyone who questioned suspicious applications was immediately attacked and threatened with lawsuits. Sonia risked her life to tell the truth because she loves America and wants to give back to the country that gave her everything. She's a patriot who understands that exposing fraud is not racism. It's protecting the integrity of programs meant to help vulnerable people. The fact that Ilhan Omar refuses to demand accountability shows whose side that she's really on. Culture matters, the rule of law matters, and the truth matters, even when progressives try to silence it with accusations of bigotry. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you, Tyson, for another great upload there. I mean, listen, a lot of these whistleblowers, after a while, they don't be around. They don't last. They tend to be, you know what I mean? So, what's going down over there is pretty horrible, to be honest with you. It's actually downright disgusting. And I don't know. It's we're living in very unique times, and I want to set up these couple of add-ons that I would like to watch, and two of them are going to be about the sun, because we need to pay attention to the sun. I feel like people don't really pay attention. They're too busy to pay attention, and that's okay. That's not like a hit on you, because people are busy. People have lives. People have bills to pay, and but also it's like you have to take a moment to also pay attention on what's going on in the world, because the world is very, very very wild place at the moment, and we're living in very unique times, like very, very unique times. So let's go ahead and take a look at the sun and see what's going on with the sun. Let's set this up.
Big solar storm impact coming in soon. Check out this differential imagery of that explosion right there.
Oh my God.
Is headed towards Earth. The estimate right now is that this will trigger a G3 geomagnetic storm. The scale rating goes from 1 to 5.
Big solar flare.
G3 level is a strong storm, or sometimes they call it a major storm. And you can see that that was a huge explosion on the sun. We can also see that here with our differential coronagraph view. So you'll notice that at the beginning of this video, we get this nice double explosion. Effectively, we're seeing the shock wave from that big explosion, And then we see the bulk of the plasma falling up behind
like
it.
3
So there's the
explosions.
shockwave and there's the bulk. Do you see that? That is headed to Earth
There's
right
another
now
one
at this
there,
moment in time.
and there's
because
another one
this
there.
was from
So
an
like 3.
explosion on the sun, exactly Earth direct. And
Oh,
super
man.
interesting thing about this solar flare
Not
is that
good.
it occurred exactly at the same time as a magnitude 7 earthquake in Alaska. And Alaska was on the daylight side of the Earth, being impacted by those light photons. And there have been 100+ aftershocks now from that magnitude 7
Wow.
earthquake. We will talk about that more. We'll talk about when we expect this impact to come in, the aurora viewing possibilities for the United States and Europe, and so much more
be
in
high.
today's video. Let's start with some
We're
high-def
gonna have
imagery of these
big
2 solar
auroras. You don't understand,
explosions.
this is
Boom
gonna really
shakalaka.
affect
There
Earth.
is that 8.1 M-class flare that exploded from the sun yesterday, a 1.1 M-class flare just before that. A bit of an appetizer, a teaser for what may yet to come. And this sunspot group is still Earth direct, so it very well could launch more activity our way in the next 24, 48, 72 hours. We also have this very large sunspot group down here. It has been very inactive, though it is very large. Sunspots right now are around 160, 170. They've been there for a few days. So overall sunspot numbers are higher on the sun right now. And I'm kind of getting a feeling that this is going to rotate around the far side. And when it shows up again, if it does, then it'll be active. And that will be the very end of December, early January. So I'm just getting the sense that since it's just recently formed, it still needs time to develop. And then we're going to see a lot of activity from that in about a month's time. But we'll have to wait and see. Actually, based off of this position, it'd be about 25 days for it to be Earth center and direct again. But we have this solar storm inbound from this 8.1 M-class flare. And that first 1.1 M-class flare did launch a little puff of plasma our way as well. The really interesting thing here, though, is really tremendous to see in action, absolutely epic, was how that solar flare, the 8.1, was perfectly lined up in time with that 7.0 earthquake in Alaska. Let's check out the aftershocks because there's been a huge amount. Here we have our USGS latest earthquakes map set for the past day and for universal time. And we see this big magnitude 7 right there. That is the largest earthquake that we've had since 1010. And that was when we had 2 magnitude 7s pop off on the same day. But check out these aftershocks. I mean, this is insane. So we'll set to list only earthquakes on the map. And in fact, we have 152 earthquakes in this location for the past 24 hours. So the strongest being that, of course, main shock, magnitude 7. There is a chance that that is a foreshock, but with this sort of after swarm, I don't think that's the case. I put that probability really low, like 1% or less. There was a magnitude 6 earthquake nearby less than 2 weeks ago outside of Anchorage that had very anomalous aftershock activity in the fact that it was very, very low. There were almost no aftershocks and they weren't high magnitude. And so that was a little bit of a precursor foreshock to this big event, though it's not immediately in the same area or on the same fault system, but the overall geologic setting is the same. So speaking to some more broader regional stress dynamics that are changing for Alaska and Canada. But we see these aftershocks here, 5.1, 5.0, 5.5.
It could get really worse.
The strongest aftershock will be 1 magnitude less than the magnitude 7. But we do have a lot of
really high population
4s,
area.
really endless amounts of magnitude 4s. So this looks like the main aftershock sequence. Residents in this area have been reporting these jolts in a low vibration, just kind of humming from the ground now for more than 24 hours. So this was a huge release of Earth energy as we forecasted back on December 2nd. So on December 2nd, I put out an earthquake forecast going all the way up to today, Sunday, for there being a higher probability of high magnitude earthquakes. And well, lo and behold, our first magnitude 7 since October 10th. So the space weather factors are very important to look at as it relates to global seismicity and geologic events, geophysical energies here on Earth. In fact, we just saw an anomalous burst of energy in the Schumann resonances, one that's not caused from local atmospheric activity. We can check that out by going to the earthevolution.com/energy-analytics portal. Here we have our data on screen via the space observing system. As many of you know, especially longtime viewers, I started off by looking at Schumann resonances. These are Earth's naturally resonant energy fields created by lightning strikes, ionospheric sunrise, solar flare impacts, space weather, earthquake energies. Our brain creates Schumann resonances. Their frequencies at 7.8 hertz, 14 hertz, 20 hertz, 25, 26 hertz, 33, 39, 45 hertz. And they form these standing waves that always have more energy than the background frequency. So here we see a spectrogram going from 0 to 40 hertz for the past 3 days. So we're only seeing 2 days and a little bit extra data here. This is observed in Tomsk, Russia. And so we see these horizontal bands of higher intensity. Here's our power legend. This is high power, that's low power. We're measuring the vertical electric field here. So you have this gradient of electrical energy, this current going from the ground surface up to the ionosphere, where you have plasma from geomagnetic storms and more. Just in general, there's a lot of energy up there. You get these vibrations nested on that current. They are the Schumann resonances. And so they show up at higher power continuously across time. Now, a lot of people track the Schumann resonances, and there's fewer people that also do a lot of videos about the Schumann resonances, daily updates, things of that nature. 95% of those people, if not more, probably 99% of them, make mistakes as to looking at local atmospheric activity and saying these are global energy changes, because the observation station for the Schumann resonances, wherever it is also detecting, of course, the local atmospheric electrical conditions. So that's cloud cover, rain, snow, thunderstorms, all these things impact that. And so you need clear weather conditions in order to pick out global signals. And global signals may not be around the entire world at once. They can also be more concentrated in certain zones, especially high latitude zones, because that is where you have more influence from the space environment. So here we see this anomalous burst in the Schumann resonances. We haven't seen anything anomalous in the Schumann resonances based off the observation stations that we do have that are public. This would be Tomsk, this would be Cumiana, Italy. There's a few elsewhere in months. Okay, I track this day by day. You may have been wondering why haven't I made videos on this? It's because nothing's been happening. Everything's been local atmospheric disturbances that other people have been saying is something special. It's not. This is special because there were clear weather conditions, fair weather conditions in Tomsk at that time. I checked, and this is also not at all characteristic of what we often see. Like this right here, that's all noise created from wind on the antenna, and also you can get that from just in general, like more cloud cover and haze. But you see here, it's nice, clear conditions, and you get this low frequency energy burst going from about 1 all the way to 10 hertz and then tapering off down into the 25 hertz zone. So that's quite bizarre. I really don't know what that is from, though it seems to be from just the energetics of yesterday. We had the big solar flare, we had the magnitude 7 earthquake, Kilauea had its biggest eruption yet.
I didn't do a show yesterday because I didn't
what
feel
that may
good.
be heralding, I can't really say. Sometimes we just get these earth bursts and that's it. But that is something I wanted to bring to your attention, this anomalous burst of energy in the Schumann resonances. And if any more pop up, I will report on it for you. Now, before we get back to when we can expect this solar storm to impact in the aurora visibility for the United States and Europe, I want us to talk a little bit more about this earthquake in Alaska, because there's some interesting things here. Here we see our ground visualization model. We see these surface waves immediately propagate through Alaska. Red is motion up, blue is motion down. This is the vertical displacement of the ground as measured by seismometers all across North America. So we see these huge waves of energy go to the United States. Now, if you're in the continental US, you're not going to feel that, okay? Because these seismographs are very sensitive. But if you're in this region, yeah, they've been feeling that energy. So it is quite remarkable how a big magnitude 7 earthquake can send out this seismic energy not only across North America, but in fact across the entire globe. This rippled out across the entire northern hemisphere. So that was a strong earthquake. And here's where things get interesting. We see that the epicenter of this magnitude 7 earthquake, in fact, was perfectly equidistant to some main ancient sites that are on the planet. So of course, the pyramids at Giza in Egypt, the Nazca lines, which we're finding more and more of all the time, and also Angkor Wat. So this is basically perfectly equidistant between them. You draw a circle there, and well, I think that's just really interesting. I really don't think you can interpret into this too much, like why there being an earthquake there, how are they connected? These are really big, broad, open questions.
No, we're being
just
nerds
at least
here.
To stimulate some curiosity. This is great. We really don't know, for example, the age of the pyramid. Some people are very certain on the age, but there's a lot of evidence that we don't know the actual age of the pyramids, the true builders. The Nazca lines are finding new ones all the time based off of satellite imagery and artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms, being able to pick up new ones. And then there's other ancient sites around the world, which also have a lot of their own mysterious qualities to them. So this magnitude 7, perhaps a little bit of a hint that we have some big revelations coming about in terms of our ancient history. Maybe it's just a coincidence. I thought I'd present this to your attention. You can learn more from that person who first made this observation by going to the link in my video description and clicking on that Twitter X link. And I've also linked on my profile, so check that out. And here we see our NOAA space weather model for that CME launch from that 8.1
Wow, look at that.
Direct shot to Earth. This is our top-down view. That's the sun. This is the Earth. This is our south-north view, so our vertical view. So often we'll see these solar storms go like this. It's like, oh, wow, it's going to hit us, but it's actually going to the south or to the north. This one, even though it launched in the northern hemisphere, was angled down to the south. So we see a direct hit there and a pretty good velocity. Here we're looking at the velocity. This is the plasma density. Same story down here, just showing you how fast it's going. So we're expected to get this sudden bump in the velocity of the solar wind from that solar storm impact, and then a sudden jump in the plasma density. Sometimes you don't get both of those two combined together.
Might get earthquake.
A G3 geomagnetic storm is expected from this, according to NOAA, and I think that's pretty much spot on. I could see this being mostly a G2 storm with then some G3 conditions active at times. Of course, it's not going to last like 3 days or anything, but I think the peak of this storm could go to G3 levels very easily. In fact, GFC Potsdam out of Europe and Germany, they expect this to go even to G4 levels, which would be a severe geomagnetic storm, at least temporarily. So we'll see who ends up being right. I'd be surprised by G4 storm, but not super surprised. I think G3 is probably what we have in store for that. As a result, we have some aurora coming in. Let's check it out. And here we have our aurora view line for tonight, December 7th, and also for tomorrow, December 8th. We see the aurora pushing down here to the southern border of Canada, and we're getting aurora all the way in the northern states, according to this model. It could push further south, especially if the Germans are right with that G4 forecast. But in general, if you live in these areas, you may want to go out at night and point your camera north, long exposure, to get some perhaps red and green colors, some of that air glow that's closer down to the surface. You're going to have to look north, though, to get that. So very likely on the night of the 8th for the United States and Canada, we are going to have a geomagnetic storm unless that impact is coming in slower than expected, in which case that would push that to the 9th. And if it's a longer duration geomagnetic storm, then that could also extend out to the 9th as well. So there is quite a lot of viewing opportunities for those in these areas. And if you're really far south in the southern hemisphere, bottom of New Zealand, very southern tip of South America, maybe down to South Africa, you could also have some aurora viewing opportunities over the next 2 nights. So that's your space weather and Earth geophysics update. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Thank you all so much for watching. Please smash that thumbs up button. Help this channel grow. If you like,
it's a very good channel. Guys, subscribe to this dude. If not, you can watch him here on My Mind Over Your Matter. Let's go next to, this is the real BP Earth Watch.
December 7th, 2025. Guys, we were looking at this image this morning, and it's moved forward several hours. But 4299, this sunspot is where the X flare came from. But the sleeping giants were down in this area here. Now, that's important. I talked about the Earth is also directly facing the southern hemisphere.
Yeah, these are helpful. You know, that's cool. You know,
equatorial line through here, the Earth would be below that eclipse.
Internet
so anything in this area is dangerous. Not only that,
I've dealt with
this area that it's moving into is where we have a portal. It's a plasma tube, and it has to do with the Earth and the sun's connectivity point on the sun. Now, the tube is about as big as Earth, but on the sun, it looks much smaller. We're going to actually take a look at it and look at the current information. But what happens when we get near that plasma tube, and that's what is happening here, you have a much bigger chance of activating one of these flares or one of these sunspots into flares. Not only that, these tubes open every 8.2 minutes at the speed of light. And really, before this video is over, guys, it would have happened again every 8.2 minutes. For the last 16 minutes, it's happened twice. There's a large amount of transfer of energy in this plasma tube. And I think it's what keeps the Earth's magnetic fields as strong as they are. But again, 4296, 4294, and 4298 right here. These are moving right into that point. I want to show you something. Now, this is an artist's concept of one of these tubes. And what the reason the satellite's there is we have a group of satellites that are between the Earth and the sun. And what they do is they move through these areas. They detect these plasma tubes. It says there's strange portals connect Earth to the sun. And in this concept, it shows a magnetic portal connecting Earth's magnetic field, connecting to the sun's. The spacecraft is on hand to measure the high energy particles and fields flowing through the portal. So again, it's like the umbilical cord of not only Earth, but the other planets. It says like giant cosmic chutes between the Earth and the sun, magnetic portals open up every 8 minutes or so to connect our planet with its host star. Once the portals open, loads of high energy particles can travel the 93 million miles or 150 million kilometers, which is 1 AU, guys, through the conduit during its brief opening. Speed of light. So if you have an X flare, you may have a CME that takes a couple of days, but the photon burst is at the speed of light, and it can do radio blackouts in the same time, 8.2 minutes. It's called an FTE, or a flux transfer event. Such cosmic connections not only exist, but are possibly twice as common as anyone ever imagined, according to space scientists who attended. Now, this goes back to 2008 when the satellites first started to detect it. And this is at the Plasma Workshop over in Huntsville, Alabama, where we got a Space Force base now, I guess. It says researchers have long known that the Earth and sun must be connected. For instance, particles from the sun are constantly whisked away via the solar wind and often follow magnetic field lines that connect the sun's atmosphere with the Earth. The field lines allow particles to penetrate Earth's magnetosphere, which is the magnetic bubble that surrounds our planet, our shields. We used to think the connection was permanent and the solar wind could trickle into near-Earth environment anytime the wind was active. But we were wrong. The connections are not steady at all. They are often brief, bursty, and very dynamic. Again, about every 8.2 seconds. Now, you got these portals floating around. You've got them that are on Earth that are not connected to the sun until one of these FTEs event occurs. And about every 8 minutes, the two fields briefly reconnect, forming a portal through which particles can flow. The portal takes the form of a magnetic cylinder about as wide as Earth. Imagine that. Now, when we have that break, you get 8.2 minutes of transfer time. The energy is so involved that as it breaks away from the sun, they have found that these portals are like a giant bridge, and they're floating around the Earth. And when that connection with the sun happens, it covers the entire planet. And I think most of the portals that you're seeing here are the arcs, plasma arcs, are involved in that. And like they said, that plasma tube from the sun is about as wide as Earth. So it encompasses the entire magnetic field and anything that else that the sun is sending. Now, let's take a look at this in real time, guys. I've got this, which it's a current model, but I've got it set back 2 days to December 5th. Now, these are your sunspots. 1429 is now in the center. That's the one that gave us the strongest flare, the two strongest flares. And then the big ones are here, 296, 294, and 298. Here's some other sunspots. Now, this is where we have the gravitational tie with the Parker Solar Probe. But these two circles right here, the blue one represents Earth, and this one represents Mercury. You see that? Now, I'm going to advance it forward. But right about here is the equator of the sun. And the Earth's connectivity point floats around on the surface of the sun, depending on the magnetic fields. But it tends to be from the middle to about where it's at now. Now, what I want to do is advance this to the current time. So pay attention to the sunspots. Again, when these electronic or magnetically or electrically magnetic charged sunspots hit these plasma tube connection points, a lot more energy can be transferred. And I've seen this actually, that burst could cause a very strong coronal mass ejection. But let's again move it forward. Now the Earth, you notice that right there, that's telling, let me go back one spot. Something on magnetically on the sun, and you see how chaotic it is as you look at it. This is the Earth's connectivity point. Again, when it gets to the Earth, it's larger or as big as the Earth is. Now watch what happens here. Something made it jump all the way on top of this sunspot 1429, but let's move it forward. Still on the 5th. Check this out. You can see that the Earth is moving in between 14294 and 14298, but the 14294 is very large. Now we're getting into the 6th. Notice your timestamp. We're into the 7th now. I'm just going to let it play through right there. Now, universal time, it's into the 8th. See that? Go back. That's the last mark right there. So as then the Earth is not going to be pushed. The Earth's connectivity point is not going to be pushed around on the backside of the sun, because that's not how it works. It's where the Earth is. So you're going to start seeing it slow down from this movement along with the sunspots. And when these large ones get over this port of the Earth, then again, we can ignite very strong CMEs, and we don't know exactly, the scientists don't know how much energy is transferred during that point, but this would definitely boost it. And again, it's like a trigger for the coronal mass ejections. Guys, I just want to come in here with that. Again, it looks like it's going to be tomorrow around midnight when we start seeing effects from that strong flare this morning. But I just want to point this out. It's scientific, but it's part of the way our Father created the solar system. And to me, guys, all knowledge, especially of heaven and the way that it was created, is good knowledge. It opens your mind. It makes you think about things you would never think about before. And possibly when you see certain events that are coming upon the planet, you'll understand a little bit more about it. So you're talking about, say, in Revelation 4, the fourth angel, pours out a vial upon the sun, or the bowl, depending on how you read it. And during that period, would it use the transfer portal between this blue circle, where it's touching the sun and our planet, to transfer that deadly heat? Men will be scorched by heat. So we don't know exactly how it will happen, but this looks like a very good point, because remember, this is the size of the portal, but when it gets to Earth, it encompasses our planet because of that size. The Earth is much smaller than this blue dot. Again, we're watching it, guys. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.
I have not.
Says 3 things I'll never believe about the January 5th, 6th pipe bomb story. 1, the bomber was a lone wolf. 2, the FBI was this incompetent for 4 years on the case, this consequential. And 3, perpetrators were pro-Trump. I happen to agree with him. less than a month ago, Blaze TV said they identified who the real January 5th pipe bomb planter was. And it turned out a former Capitol police officer is a forensic match for the January 6th pipe bomber, sources say. So immediately that came. So that was less than a month ago. A forensic analysis of a female former U.S. Capitol police officer's gait is a 94 to 98% match to the unique stride of a long-sought January 6th pipe bomb suspect. A source close to the congressional investigation of January 6th additionally told Blaze News evidence has emerged recently that they pointed toward law enforcement possibly being involved in the planting of the pipe. So we know that the January 6th was mainly FBI PSYOP, right? So they had hundreds and hundreds of cops and assets and FBI agents inside the crowd. They had them inside the Capitol dressed as MAGA supporters, FBI cops, before the riot ever started. They went in, took off their police uniforms, put on MAGA hats and MAGA stuff. And then, so we know this. We know that this was an FBI PSYOP, right? And they were trying to do this. They did the same thing to Bolsonaro in Brazil. They were trying to make it so Trump couldn't run for president again on his way out. They were trying to get him to commit a crime of trespassing and creating this riot on federal property so then they could exclude him from ever running for president again. It didn't work. It didn't work. So, by the way, here is the pipe bomber throwing signs. Here's the pipe bomber. Here's the pipe bomber walking by, and then a cop, DC cop, comes by and throws signs to them. Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? There's the DC cop. That's the DC cop. So, yeah, that's straight out of the undercover manual. No matter what you disguise yourself as, blatantly wave directly at the cops as they drive by. That's your smartest move. You never see James Bond doing that. You never see a James Bond movie. You only blow cover twice. Yeah, that never happens. So after the Blaze did that reporting, suddenly 5 years later, within the month, the FBI found the real January 6th bomber. Does anybody believe this? So after the Blaze points out that it's 98% certain that it was a DC cop that did it, who, by the way, went to work for the CIA after. So this is the person. So that's the person. And she went to work for she got a cush job at the CIA, right? Isn't that where she went to work? Well, now the FBI found the real one. Yes, they found the real one. Accused DC pipe bomber appears in court on explosive charges. There you go. A Virginia man who authorities allege planted pipe bomb near the Republican and Democratic National Committee headquarters appeared in court on Friday. Brian Cole of Woodridge, Virginia, was brought before Magistrate Judge. He is charged with unlawful transportation of explosive device in interstate commerce with the intent to kill, injure. Now, there's reports this guy's autistic. There's certainly reports that this guy is not the kind of guy to do this, and we'll get to that. Even his neighbors say he's got really short legs; he'd be identifiable easily. He's also charged with malicious destruction or attempt. Blah blah blah. Cole allegedly placed the bombs the night of January 5th, 2021. The discovery of the bombs diverted law enforcement from the violence at the Capitol. Oh yeah, they were diverted. That's what the problem was. That's why they didn't have enough law enforcement there. That's why the National Guard wasn't there. We've got Nancy Pelosi on video at least twice admitting that it was her fault for not having the National Guard there because Trump asked for it. Anyway, and by the way, they've additionally charged that man with becoming a woman because that's who it looks like actually did it, was a woman, but it was a man. And so now, at least he could go to any bathroom he wants. Much of the grainy surveillance footage from the day showed the alleged suspect in a hoodie. Well, let me find. Is there a picture? This is what they say. This is who they say the guy is. That's who they say the guy is.
Did he buy those fancy tennis shoes that they were all over about?
Yeah. Did he have the? And here's who the Blaze says it is. Says it's this woman. That's who the Blaze says it is. Does that look like that guy? I don't know. Anyway, so here we go. Much of the grainy surveillance footage from the day showed the alleged suspects in a hoodie, face mask, and gloves, making it difficult to identify them. The FBI was offering $500,000 reward for any information that could lead to, wow, $500,000. Who's paying for that? Right? Investigators on the case have also said that the bombs were not detected until 15 hours after they were placed, giving the suspect time to flee the scene. Okay. During interviews with the FBI, the suspect arrested in the pipe bomb probe told investigators that he believed the 2020 election was stolen, providing perhaps the first indication of a possible motive for the bombs placed near the DNC and RNC headquarters. People briefed on the matter previously told CNN. The FBI arrested Cole, 30, at his home, where he lives with his parents. So he lives at his parents' home. He's 30 years old. On Thursday, Cole spent hours with FBI investigators and made multiple statements, the sources said. Well, at least the spooks have dropped the whole DEI hired assassin idea. Dan Bongino, deputy FBI director, told Fox News on Thursday that the FBI had interviewed the suspect at length, but didn't elaborate. The Bureau believes the man compiled bomb-making supplies for months before leaving the viable explosive devices outside of the political offices. Okay. All right. Short list of things we trust more than the FBI. TV news. Oral sex from an electric eel. Okay. So there it is. The DC pipe bomber said that he thought the 2020 election was stolen. That totally changes the narrative that conservatives' accounts were pushing yesterday. Sounds like the guy was acting in Trump's interests instead of being a critic. So he's a Trumper. That's the news. So that's the whole thing. So here's what Benny Johnson tweeted out. He said the January 6th pipe bomber terrorist was a young black guy, radical anti-Trump activists, sued Trump and ICE and DHS, extreme racial justice advocate, works at a family bail bonds company that frees criminal aliens from ICE custody. Yeah, this explains exactly why the FBI, the Department of Justice, could not find this guy for 4 years. The Biden FBI had mountains of evidence against Brian Cole, receipts, cell phone data, license plate, photos, and videos of the crime. They knew exactly who did it. But Brian's profile destroys their entire MAGA white supremacist insurrection bomber narrative in one blow. The FBI didn't fail to catch him. Leftists protected their own. This is the biggest FBI cover-up scandal in history. What a nightmare. I wouldn't go that far. So I don't know. You tell me. But it's none of this seems real. So is what he's saying real? Is what Benny Johnson's reporting there real? I know his parents worked with Ben Crump, who was Trayvon Martin's lawyer, famous African-American civil rights lawyer in Florida. I know that. I know that his parents do run bail bonds and they do help all the people arrested by ICE get out. It also destroys the MAGA insurrection narrative unless you want to believe both the left and MAGA were staging insurrections at the same place and time. More likely that what happened at the Capitol was FBI incited to benefit the left, and the pipe bomb was an element of this plan. Well, it was obvious the FBI did this. Anti-Trump, they wanted to make Trump illegal. They did the exact same game plan they did to Bolsonaro in Brazil. They fomented, incited a riot, and they charged him with doing that. So now he can never run for president again. They thought that would work with Trump. It didn't. January 6th pipe bomber facts. One, black male, 30 years old. Black Lives Matter supporter. Followed Democrat influencers. Voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Mom, a black supremacist. Now, how do they know that? How do people who tweet? How do people who tweet that? Come on, that sounds like spin. But anyway, so we asked Grok if that's true. Well, this post highlights facts about the January 6th 21 pipe bomber suspect Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old black man from Virginia, arrested December 4th after a 4-year FBI investigation. And it's weird, in the same month that the Blaze came out with While the age and race align with official charges, claims of BLM support following Democrat influencers voting for Biden and Harris and black supremacist mother remain unverified in public records or news reports, which instead note Cole's belief in the 2020 election fraud theories. So what are we to believe? I don't know this. I know that Thomas Massey says 3 things I'll never believe about the January 5th, 6th pipe bomb story. 1, the bomber was a lone wolf. 2, the FBI was this incompetent for 4 years on the case, this consequential. And 3, perpetrators were pro-Trump. I happen to agree with him. I don't think the perpetrators were pro-Trump. I think the perpetrators were connected to law enforcement in some way. Just like the FBI, the real insiders of that riot were plants, FBI agents, FBI assets, other police people from other departments. Here's Representative Massey. He's questioning the FBI director before Kash Patel, Christopher Wray, on the pipe bomb investigation in July of 23.
Well, again, I don't want to speculate about specific individuals. I will tell you that we have done thousands of interviews, reviewed something like 40,000 video files, of which this is one, assessed 500 something tips.
Have you interviewed that
the
person?
Devices. We have conducted all logical investigative steps and interviewed all logical individuals at this
Then
point.
you need, it's 900
Continuing.
days. You need to tell us what you found, because we're finding stuff you haven't released into the public.
Yeah. So, of course, Christopher Wray is a big lying criminal, like almost all the heads of the FBI have been in history since J. Edgar Hoover. So they're all lying criminals. We're ruled by lying criminals, and that's a good look at one. I find it funny that they accuse an ex-DC Police Department officer that now works for the CIA, and then magically there's a second suspect within a month after there hadn't been any suspects for years. Nothing suspicious here. Wow. Guess what? CNN reports this guy is a white guy. You want to hear it? Yeah, he's a white guy.
Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device.
What is the point of that? Why would you lie like that? Why? Because you know most people are going to hear that lie and they'll never hear the retraction. So yeah, he's a white guy. That's just a really big birthmark. He's a white guy. I'll play it for you again.
Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction by means of explosion. CNN observed local and federal law enforcement outside his home in Woodbridge, Virginia this morning.
And they didn't notice that it was black people that lived there? Brian Cole, the January 6th pipe bomber, is from a family that runs bail bond services for the bail bond service for illegal immigrants. They were represented by Ben Crump. You remember Ben Crump? He represented Trayvon Martin. He's a big African-American civil rights lawyer. I'm going to go in on a limb and say he's not MAGA. So it doesn't seem like it. Here is another one. The criminal complaint against Brian Jerome Cole Jr. has just been made public. It turns out they tracked him down using his purchase record, cell phone data, and license plate info, and it still took them 5 years to locate him. Meanwhile, a bunch of January 6th defendants were rounded up in a matter of days. Why did it take almost 5 years to round this guy up?
Because they were looking for a white man.
Was that it? Were they listening to CNN? Reminder that Kamala Harris said this about Jussie Smollett, and the post is still up today. She said, Jussie Smollett is one of the kindest, most gentle human beings I know. I'm praying for. That was an attempted modern day lynching. No one should ever fear for their life because of their sexuality or color of their skin. Okay. But anyway, here's the house that he lived in with his parents. The January 6th pipe bomber, Brian Cole, is apparently an anarchist who lives in a house that looks like that. But guess what is also being reported by his neighbors? According to the family, Brian Cole is severely autistic. and didn't leave the house much. He also has uncommonly short legs, and the suspect is in the video does not. I hope they get the right guy. This is here. So listen, this is by Men's Journal. The suspect's grandmother, Loretta, told the New York Post he's almost autistic. Like, because he doesn't understand a lot of stuff, but he put together bombs. He was able to put bombs when he's borderline, as according to his grandmother, he doesn't understand a lot of stuff and he's borderline autistic. I hope he's not talking. She also alleged he's very naive. He would not hurt a fly. He's just that kind of person. I don't believe this at all. He's not a terrorist. The grandmother told the Post that Cole works for the family bail bonds company, Brian Cole Bail Bonds. She added that he also worked for DoorDash for a time. He doesn't have any ties to DC, she added. I don't even know how they included him in this.
Yeah, that's just awkward.
So there you go. A guy who's reportedly borderline autistic somehow put this mastermind plan together. They couldn't find him for 5 years. It's funny, they immediately found him right after the Blaze pointed out that it was a DC cop who now works for the CIA who was the DC pipe bomber. Isn't that weird? Yeah, it is weird. Yeah. So again, if you believe the FBI story on this, I've got a vaccine I'd like to sell you. Just like if you believe the FBI story on Tyler Robinson and the Charlie Kirk assassination. Just like if you believe the FBI story on the Epstein files, that there's no there, it's a Democrat hoax, and Epstein wasn't trafficking kids to anybody except himself. So if you believe the FBI, you are the chump of all chumps. And I believe the only people who actually say they believe it are people being paid to say they believe it. We found out, Nick Sorter found out a bunch of right-wing influencers who were being paid pittance to advocate for sugary drinks be included in food stamps.
No.
So these people, it doesn't take much to bribe these people, is what I'm saying. Anyway, so there you have your DC pipe bomber, and now we know the rest of the story. Okay, over to Steph. Hey, by the way, come see us. We'll see you December 6th, Saturday in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. We're going to see you January 11th in Waikiki. January 30th, we'll see you at Los Angeles at the Comedy Store. Go to Jimmy.
He ain't coming back to Connecticut. He was here in Connecticut. I couldn't go because I was sick. I couldn't go. I was sick. I really wanted to go to the Jimmy. He was playing at the Funny Bone. That's where he was holding his gig, was at the Funny Bone, and the one in Hartford and the one in, I think it was in Manchester, and I couldn't go. I was sick. I was sick, and I was like, damn, I was so bummed about it. And I always hoped that he would return sometime in the near future, but apparently that's not going to happen. Not right now, because he's going to Waikiki. That's so cool. He's going back to Hawaii. So let's go on here to the next and probably the final show for the night. If there's nothing else breaking, we should do a quick little check here. We do have something to watch. There's an add-on. Hey, you thought we were gonna get out without an add-on? I thought, but it's okay because it's stuff that I really want to watch. So what I really, really want to watch, I share with you guys, and you guys watch the same thing that I watch and how I program my mind. You guys could join me on some input. Because we all love input. I love Short Circuit. Such a great movie. Like, part 2 is like, okay, part 3, and it starts getting watered down. But nothing outbeats the original. You know, the original is so good. Such a great movie. And let's see if we can get this all set up here. Okay, it's just a couple of, and let me just check to see if there's anything On the breaking side of news, is there anything? I mean, yeah, I'm gonna add this one on. Okay. All right, so I think these two would be the only two add-ons for the night that I want to watch with you guys together. So let me set this up and then decide which one. Let's move this around here. Let's go to this one first and then okay. I like the lineup right now. So it's the three shows left for the night. And I think these three will be great add-ons. Well, two of them are add-ons, and then we're gonna end off the show with Tyson. So, without further ado, let's get right to it and watch some liberal hive mind.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant
Which
hypocrisy
guy
of
you
the left.
talking about? The
Of
one
course,
we're
there's the
watching?
meme of the day brought to
Jimmy
you by
Dore?
HiveMind.com. It's always the same damn
Jimmy
thing
Dore.
now, isn't it? It's always the people who
Pretty good.
espouse the
He's
most
alright.
virtue, who pretend to be the most compassionate, the most philanthropic, who behind the
understand him more
scenes
than
are
I
anything but. They're doing it for themselves. And this is even more true when that philanthropy, that generosity, isn't with your own amassed riches. You're not taking money out of your own damn pocket and giving it to the needy. No, you're doing it with somebody else's money. In other words, when you're a big Democrat bureaucrat and you're trying to convince the world of just how virtuous and incredible you are, the billionaire class and the poor's peoples will solve all of your problem with his money. This is the biggest red flag imaginable. These are the people that you should run away with at the fastest speed you are capable of. Because every single time and time again, these fake virtue signalers, in this case, Ilhan Omar with her little, I'm just a public servant wanting to feed the kids, that little brand that she created. Yeah, it turns out it's a total fraud, and it's more about feeding her own personal bank account while using your money. And now it seems we've
It's a
got the
total fraud.
receipts, we've got a potential money trail here, and all of it is running right through Ilhan Omar's little political universe there in Minnesota. This is absolutely wild, folks. Ilhan Omar's political career might be coming to a crushing end. I mean, at this point, the way things are moving quickly, she might end up in a freaking penitentiary pretty soon. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. We got some stuff to get into. Let's roll the tape. All right, folks. So we've got some interesting information coming out here. First, we've got this Fox News report that continues to show the very chummy, very close connection between these Somali food aid fraudsters and these top Democrat politicians, namely Ilhan Omar.
Well, now investigators are tracking the web of fraud to other Minnesota Democrats, such as Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Many of the suspects linked to the scheme live in her district, including a restaurant owner who hosted events for her. He has since been convicted of stealing $12 million in COVID funds.
Yes, she apparently knew nothing about these food scams, yet she was friends with all the fraudsters. And now we're learning they were even funding her campaign.
Minnesota went on a mission to create their own huge welfare system. They basically kept expanding their own state level House and Human Services Department. It grew from $15 billion in 2022 to $23 billion in this next fiscal year. And basically 42% of all new spending goes to this welfare system that they're setting up. And most of it goes to this housing stabilization services program, which became this whole snowball of fraud, which got even more attention because it turns out a lot of the money ended up in the hands of Al-Shabaab. And the thing with this HSS program is that they designed it in Minnesota as an honor system, which I gather means that you could basically go and spend the money first and then get reimbursed by the state. And the logic here was that if you needed housing, then you should basically be able to go and just pay for it without getting approval of anything and then charge it back. So you have like some defendants, these people that called themselves brilliant minds, they defrauded the government of about $2.3 million. You have this other one called Liberty Plus housing consulting, where the owner was driving a Mercedes and telling his employees to bill as much as they could. Looks like they got about $1.2 million in fraudulent Medicaid funds. So then the state did this emergency executive order where they're terminating the program. But that just kicked off this whole other investigation, which honestly is crazy because then it gets into autism, where basically people start looking into the number of autism service providers in the state. And it turns out that they've increased by 700% over the past 5 years. And then it turns out that Al-Shabaab is getting a bunch of taxpayer money. And then it gets into people investigating this organization called Feeding Our Future that was getting more taxpayer money. And one of the things that set that investigation off is that this person who was also defrauding the autism program got $14 million and bought real estate in Kenya with this money. But then it starts to tie into these high profile Minnesota politicians like the mayor. The mayor's aide actually pleads guilty in a $250 million scheme to defraud taxpayers. And it looked like maybe some of the money was making it to the mayor. And then Ilhan Omar gets involved because her deputy district director was at the party for one of the ringleaders of this fraud ring, and they were making donations to Ilhan Omar. And one of her staffers even had to plead guilty to fraud.
I mean, it's absolutely wild. Don't you find that a little bit of a coincidence? There's millions of people in Minnesota, and yet Ilhan Omar just happens to be connected to, photographed with all of the big taxpayer fraudsters. It's certainly suspicious, but it certainly ain't freaking surprising. You know, I'm supposed to be looking at these videos going, "Google, color me shocked. Ilhan Omar knew these fraudsters. What?" No, of course it's not surprising, because the programs that they were using to funnel taxpayer dollars, to embezzle taxpayer dollars through, those were programs created by Ilhan Omar herself.
Can you shed any light on why the fraud got so out of control in Minnesota?
I think what happened is that, you know, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created.
She, in 2020, introduced the Meals Act, a bill that explicitly designed to loosen rules and let the USDA waive normal oversight and paperwork requirement for school programs. This was during COVID. And on paper, of course, it was for the kids, for the kids. But now it seems prosecutors are saying that in reality, they loosened those rules so they could come in heavy with scammers and bleed the programs frickin' dry. All while claiming they were serving meals. They were serving phantom meals. They were doing nothing and walked off with hundreds of millions of dollars. And it was Ilhan Omar's freaking program. But her excuse, as you heard earlier, was, "Oh, well, you know, with these big programs, we have to just trust that people are going to do the right thing." Yeah, kind of hard to trust random people with hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer funds, no oversight and no transparency, as if they're just going to do the right thing. Oh, it was just a mistake. Who could have seen it coming? It just got so out of control. What a complete joke. And keep in mind, it's been getting out of control for years, and not one of them sounded the alarm. When the numbers weren't adding up, nobody raised concerns. No, they were just relying on people to do the right thing. We're supposed to seriously believe that Ilhan Omar wasn't involved. She introduced the bill. She bragged about the programs. She did the video promotions for the programs.
Marka waxaan fursad u helnay in aan sharci soo gudbino oo la dhahayo Meals Act oo u fududeynayo in waqtigaanay pandemic aan ku jirno oo dhalinyarada iskoolka aynan joogin oo guryahooda ay joogaan.
Her Somali community allies ran the program, and then her donors and her friends freaking looted it. They took all the money. And meanwhile, as all of this is going on, as kids in Minnesota are literally being robbed of hundreds of millions of dollars that were supposed to be used to feed them. And keep in mind, this is happening in inner city communities. You know, the left's always going on and on about, "Oh, the kids, my black kids, we need programs to save their lives and make their lives better." Meanwhile, here they are freaking looting those programs. But I guess that's another conversation for another day. But anyways, as all of this was going on, magically, Ilhan Omar's net worth is just ballooning like you can't even imagine. Her financial disclosure in 2024 showed her household net worth somewhere between $6 and $30 million. She came into government in 2020 as a 10,000-aire. She had a few $10,000 to her name, and now she's potentially worth $30 million in 4 years on a government salary? 30 freaking million? Yeah, obviously there's a freaking racket here. The racket is people like Ilhan Omar playing these race games and these grift games and these emotional games. Ooh, elect me. I'm just a humble servant of the people. I'm part of the oppressed class, and I am here to speak on behalf of all of you. Appeal to people's good nature, and then rob them frickin' blind. And then, of course, when the backlash comes, or when people start asking questions, scream racism. Use the scarf that you wear on your head as a magic shield from all scrutiny and accountability. These people want to talk about white privilege. Yeah, I don't think it exists. But this, to me, this is privilege. Being able to oversee some of the worst fraud in American history and simply get away with it for years because if anybody questioned you, well, they're automatically a racist, bigot, Islamophobic, misogynistic, blah, blah, blah. You get the freaking point. Well, that shield certainly worked for a while there, especially during the George Floyd era. But as we know, times are changing and they're changing quickly. The pendulum's in full motion at this point. And so let's just say I don't think Ilhan Omar is going to get away with this grift for much longer. This is looking bad. And I mean seriously bad. It looks like they were all connected. These fraudsters, these Democrat politicians from Tim Walz to Ilhan Omar to Keith Ellison to Mayor Jacob Fry. They were all freaking connected. They all knew each other. It's a whole freaking rotten ecosystem in Minnesota. And basically the entire left-wing worldview collapses once again, as Ilhan Omar suggested. Well, you know, with these government programs that we're spending billions of dollars on, you just kind of have to assume that people are going to do the right thing. Yeah, well, guess what? They won't. They never will. And so maybe, just maybe, it's time to nip the bud on these generous philanthropical programs that clearly aren't doing what they're intended to do. Government, fundraisers, charities, these kinds of programs cannot be trusted because there's a perverse incentive structure that humans will abuse time and time again. Not all humans, but enough to where, you know, it just doesn't work. It consistently does not work. And Ilhan Omar proves that once again. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right, let's keep it moving to Jason A.
Simply no room or no time for nostalgia. Battle lines for a new world order based on power are being drawn right now. So yes, Europe must fight for its place in the world, in which many major powers are either ambivalent or openly hostile to Europe, a world of imperial ambitions and imperial wars, a world in which dependencies are ruthlessly weaponized. And it is for all these reasons that a new Europe must emerge.
And finally, it takes resilience. As technology evolves, we need to build up societal immunity around information manipulation. Because research has shown that pre-bunking is much more successful than debunking. Pre-bunking is basically the opposite of debunking. In short, prevention is preferable to cure. Perhaps if you think of information manipulation as a virus, instead of treating an infection once it has taken hold, that is debunking. It is much better to vaccinate so that the body is inoculated. Pre-bunking is the same approach. Because disinformation relies on people passing it on to others. It is essential that people know what malign information's influence is and what the techniques are that are behind it. And as the knowledge goes up, our chances of being influenced goes down. And that builds up the society resilience that we will need.
How will they react? Venezuela, probably not going to align with the Western democracies and shift the other way. But I think we are really in a very chaotic, dangerous moment in geopolitics. And I think also it's only makes sense that all of the nations of the world that align around free world values, individual human rights, fair capital markets, and good business practices, those types of things that we love in the United States and Western Europe, we've got to stay united because the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, the North Koreans are going to do everything they can to divide us.
Here in Beijing, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has just arrived at a massive military parade
with Chinese leader Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is the first time ever that the three leaders have appeared on the global stage together, and the world's media is here watching. For Xi, this is about more than just unveiling new weaponry. It's about showing off a new global order with Kim, Putin, and other world leaders from countries including Iran, Pakistan, and Myanmar.
中华民族伟大复兴势不可挡。
As those troops and weapons roll past in Beijing, the show of military might and new global alignment is in direct challenge to the West, with some experts even calling it an axis of upheaval. And as US President Donald Trump unleashes chaos with his global trade war and shaky attempts to end the war in Ukraine, Chinese leader Xi Jinping has a message. China is ready to step up as an alternative leader to the United States.
We're going to turn now to the reaction around the world to Donald Trump's victory. Vladimir Putin is among the global leaders congratulating the president-elect as speculation grows about how Trump will handle issues like Ukraine. Chief Foreign Correspondent Ian Pannell is tracking the latest from London. Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, good morning, George. You can almost be forgiven for thinking Donald Trump was already in office, judging by the amount of international attention he's getting. He's spoken to around 70 world leaders, but conspicuously missing from that list is Vladimir Putin. The Russian leader giving a major speech overnight, sounding upbeat in the wake of Trump's victory. The Russian president claiming a new world order is now taking shape. Putin congratulating Trump, though, saying he's ready to meet the president-elect, also praising his response to that attempted assassination, saying he was courageous and a real man.
I think, my mother had an expression, out of everything terrible, something good will come if you look hard enough for it. I think this presents us with some significant opportunities to make some real changes. We are at an inflection point, I believe, in the world economy, not just the world economy, in the world. It occurs every 3 or 4 generations. As one of the top military people said to me in a secure meeting the other day, 60 million people died between 1900 and 1946. Since then, we established a liberal world order, and that hadn't happened in a long while. A lot of people dying, but nowhere near the chaos. And now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there, and we've got to lead it. We've got to unite the rest of the free world in doing it. So anyway, I'm going to hush up, Mary, fire away.
What?
China claims it's a neutral mediator in the war in Ukraine. It's not. It's actively supporting Russia, openly with trade and less openly supplying vital parts for Vladimir Putin's war machine. So why is all this happening? Well, from Russia's point of view, because it has to. It absolutely needs China to dodge Western sanctions, to prop up its militarized economy and to supply its war machine. From China's point of view, it has Russia over a barrel and is exploiting that on its own terms for all it can, benefiting economically, but also because the longer this war goes on, the more divided the West and NATO seem to become. China does not want a world dominated by one power. Helping Russia continue this war is helping achieve that ambition.
Holding hands, Russia's Vladimir Putin and India's Narendra Modi head straight for their host, Chinese President Xi Jinping. They form a huddle with their translators and exchange a few words, even a few laughs. For Xi, the optics are ideal as he seeks to assert himself as a world leader they can count on. In his opening speech at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, he told members that global governance had reached a new crossroads, taking not-so-subtle jabs at the United States.
We should uphold fairness and justice. We must promote a correct historical perspective on World War II and oppose the Cold War mentality. We should block confrontation and bullying practices.
When Donald Trump upended the global trading system, he provided fertile ground for President Xi to rally partners from around the world. This summit is one example, aiming to strengthen ties between more than 20 countries from across Asia and the Middle East through cooperation on issues ranging from AI, infrastructure, or the creation of an SCO development bank. Modi would have once been much more cautious about showing public displays of affection for Putin and Xi as he tried to cultivate India's relationship with the US. But with Delhi currently facing a 50% levy on its exports, analysts say Modi has been pushed into the arms of his Chinese counterpart, even despite years of tensions over a border dispute.
The Shanghai Cooperation Organization can become the guiding light for multilateralism and an inclusive world order.
Meanwhile, Xi is gearing up for his next major event, a military parade in Beijing attended by leaders of Russia, North Korea and Iran to mark 80 years since the end of the Second World War.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. You know, we're just a bunch of pawns looking in this big ass crazy world. That's how I see it. Just we live in a very weird world. And is it going to get any better? Not in 2026. Not in 2026. I'm sorry. I don't see that happening. It's just not going to happen. Let's see what else. Got one show left. And let me just see if there's anything breaking, which I don't think there's anything. Yeah. There's an add-on. There's an add-on. Yes, I knew I was waiting for something. It's one of my favorite YouTubers too. I love when I have add-ons. Especially when they're really good add-ons. Is that Rick? You said one more. I go, yeah, but one more add-on. And I think it'll be a good one too, because this one I really like. We know we're gonna end the show with Tyson. But what is the add-on? We'll see in a moment. Let's just do a little housekeeping here. All right. And here we go with another add-on from Jason A. So we're going to just watch this and enjoy.
All of our flaws are what make us fun. You know, like laughing, getting drunk, going to see a great movie, falling in love, having a family, you know, having a cool podcast, whatever it is. All those things are what makes life fun for us in this particular state. But, you know, if you transcend from this life into a permanent state of the DMT dimension, which is what might be next. That might be what people see when they have these near-death experiences. That might be, I mean, it might be when you are released from your physical body and consciousness exists in the sea of consciousness that is the entire universe itself, that all of these things are conscious and aware. They're just in a different way. I mean, that might we might be holding ourselves back from that with this ridiculous notion that it's dystopian to think that we're going to be improved technologically.
So you've become more religious recently, right? Like, or I guess you go to church now.
Like I said, I think they're relaying a truth. I don't think it's myth. I don't think the whole thing is myth, but I don't think it's entirely accurate either. You know, like when I was having a conversation with my daughter about the book of Revelations, because they were reading the book of Revelations, and they were talking about how it's all going to happen, how it's going to end. And then I said, well, let me tell you something. There's no way that guy telling you that knows that. He might be reading the text, and that text, by the way, is a translation. It's an English translation of probably either Latin or Greek, which was originally ancient Hebrew. Like a lot is lost in text, and a lot is lost also in the oral tradition. You know, but it's like a long story. Like, I want to sit down with her and talk about the Younger Dryas impact theory. And it's like, but I'm like, there's no way that guy knows. It might be true. It might be true, but there's no way he knows it's true, because he's just a person. He's a person like you or me that is like deeply involved in the scripture.
Yeah, so that way
scripture to me is what's interesting. It's fascinating.
You can watch me on TV.
That is what, and also that Christianity, at least, is the only thing I have experience with. It works. Like the people that are Christians that go to this church that I go to, that I meet that are Christian, they are the nicest people you will ever meet. They're really kind, and they are even more nice at a church. When you leave the church parking lot, everybody lets you go in front of them. Everybody's like, there's no one honking in the church parking lot. It's it works. So regardless of whether or not it's based on an entirely true story, I think it is an ancient relaying of a real event. and of the real history of human beings.
I haven't got there, but I have started going to church every now and again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy it?
I love it.
Yeah.
I do.
I do too. It's a bunch of people that are going to try to make their lives better. They're trying to be a better person. And they're trying to, I mean, for me at least, the place that I go to, they read and analyze passages in the Bible. I'm really interested in what these people were trying to say, because I don't think it's nothing. There's a lot of like atheists and secular people that just like to dismiss Christianity as being foolish. It's just fairy tales. I hear that amongst, self-professed intelligent people. Like it's a fairy tale. I'm like, I don't know if that's true. I think there's more to it. I think it's history, but I think it's a confusing history. It's a confusing history because it was a long time ago, and it's people telling things in an oral tradition and writing things down in a language that you don't understand, in the context of a culture that you don't understand. And I think there's something to what they're saying. I don't think it's nothing.
No.
I think there's something to it, and there's a reason why it resonates with people. And Christianity in particular is the most fascinating to me because there's this one person that everybody agrees existed that somehow or another had the best plan for how human beings should interact with each other and behave, and was the best example of it, and even died in a non-violent, like didn't even protest, died on the cross, supposedly for our sins. Like, it's a fascinating story. What does it represent, though? That's the real thing. What was that? Like, what happened? Who was Jesus Christ if it was a human being? What was that? Rep Luna, she came on my podcast. She was telling me some stuff that was just like mind blowing, and she really got me to read the Book of Enoch. She's like, you got to read that.
So you have the Ethiopian Orthodox text, which has, I think, 8 books of the Bible in total. But in the Ethiopian Orthodox text, it's basically kind of like a mainline OG version of the Bible. And then sometime in the 4th century, there was actually a group that came together and they removed certain books. And the story goes that Revelations actually had replaced Enoch. And so it's interesting because when you're looking kind of full circle on, you hear the stuff that some of these people are talking about, and then you see and you read the Book of Enoch, which is a wild read, okay? And then you look at kind of what our modern day description is of what angels and entities are versus what Enoch was seeing and reporting in his language and ability at that time. I think
it's simple. That's why I have my
computer. Then ask
I have it on my television.
Why would they remove this information if it's truly,
I'm watching the whole show
written in part of the oldest Bible in the world? Why would they then take it out?
And that could have easily been attached to the religious canon, but some rabbis disagree with it because it didn't vibe with the Torah. So let's chuck that one out. But it's in the same lump of Dead Sea Scrolls like the Book of Isaiah, which is really fascinating because Wes Huff, when he was on my podcast, explained to me that the Book of Isaiah that they found in the Dead Sea Scrolls is verbatim the same as the Book of Isaiah that was 1,000 years more recent.
Whoa,
1,000 years. So this was the oldest version that they thought was the oldest version, and then they found the Dead Sea Scrolls version, which was 1,000 years older, verbatim. Fascinating. And the Book of Enoch's in there.
There you go.
Like, what are they talking about? What are you talking about? The Watchers came down and they mated with humans, and they created a race that was a giant race that destroyed everything and consumed everything. That sounds like us. Doesn't that sound like us? If you're some flimsy, tiny alien thing with no musculature and a large head, and you make giants, you make football players, you make marauding Vikings, that are just showing up in boats and hacking everybody to pieces. That's how you would describe them.
Yep.
You would describe them giants, destroyed everything.
Yes.
It's all very weird stuff, man.
And Enoch himself goes through this amazing personal transformation where he goes up to heaven, he walks with God, and then he turns into Metatron, this angel. And a lot of people think that's part of kind of a celestial ascent tradition. So you have celestial ascent traditions and various traditions, and the wheels of Ezekiel. Or, some people think in the Book of Acts, Jesus does this, or Paul has the thorn in the flesh where he sees God. And so maybe there's something around ascending up into this state and coming back down, and there's a translation function where it's hard to say, once you've ascended, it's hard to say what you've seen, like in the Murescu immortality key, where there's like a fight club around it or something.
This is the fight club of the ancient world. Whatever happened there, no one talked about it, under penalty of death. I mean, people went to Eleusis as human beings, and from what little testimony survived, again, because it's secret, under penalty of death, they walked away thinking they were immortal.
This all sounds really insane, I'm sure. But
I mean, you would have to have a fight club around it, because no one's going to understand, nor are they going to take you seriously ever again if you start talking.
All right. Got some more add-ons. Hey, Rick, no more add-ons. I don't know. In fact, more input is more input for our brains. It's good for us. And they're pretty good. And it's I think it's a good little lineup for us to watch. I think it's important, Why not? Okay, let's see what this is about.
I do want to take you back into some of your top stories that we are tracking here at this hour. Take a look as the man charged in yet another violent stabbing on a North Carolina light rail is in the U.S. illegally and was previously deported several times. Online records at the Mecklenburg County Jail in Charlotte show Oscar Soranzo faces several charges, including attempted murder. No bond was set due to his immigration status, we're told. Now, the Department of Homeland Security telling Fox News Digital the suspect was removed from the U.S. in March of 2018 on a deportation order, and he re-entered illegally at the Texas border in March of 2021. He was reportedly booted again from the country and able to sneak back in as a getaway. Court documents allege he broke into a railroad car on the Charlotte light rail Friday evening, carrying a large fixed blade knife with the intent to commit a felony. While intoxicated, the paperwork states Soranzo challenged the victim to a fight, cursing and shouting at other people, then attacked the victim, critically injuring him. Now, people who ride public transit in Charlotte spoke briefly with Queen City News about the second light rail stabbing attack in just a matter of months.
My husband missed that train by, one stop and didn't get on there. And that's crazy.
Wow.
We should not have to feel like we are one stroke of bad luck away from being the next victim. I think City Council is listening and responding, but they need to be more aggressive about that response.
I don't let nobody sit behind me. Fuck that.
I'm always standing on the train. I don't sit on my phone, and I've always got my pepper spray with
I
me.
don't like to not be able to see behind me,
Bystander. If you see someone in trouble
I don't
on the
trust
train,
people.
we need people to respond and step in, because security's not always going to be there to help other people.
I used to sit in the seating that sits sideways.
That first attack we were talking about, it happened on Charlotte's light rail back in August. Irina Zalutska, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee, was fatally stabbed
That's
on
crazy.
a light rail while on her way home from work. 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown Jr. charged in that attack. Now, we are also getting reaction coming in from all over. We did hear from President Donald Trump posting on Truth Social saying, another stabbing by an illegal migrant in Charlotte, North Carolina. What's going on in Charlotte? Democrats are destroying it like everything else, piece by piece. And I do want to talk more about the situation unfolding there in North Carolina.
But it's the truth.
Let's bring in Congressman Mark Harris, a Republican representing North Carolina's 8th Congressional District. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on this Sunday.
Josh, thank you so much for having me. It's good to be with you.
course. And first off, I did want to ask you your thoughts overall as the information started to come out, and this was another serious attack there on the light rail in Charlotte. We're talking the second one here in a matter of months. What's going through your mind at that point?
Well, obviously, what's going through my mind when I first heard about it was not again. I mean, it was almost unbelievable to think that here we were just a few months removed from really the whole nation's attention was turned to Irina Zarutska, the young Ukrainian woman who was fleeing a war-torn Ukraine, came to Charlotte and was leaving her job when she was stabbed by someone that had been on the streets for, I think, after 14 previous arrests and even doing 5 years in prison. And yet he was back out on the streets and was able to do that. So then when we hear that this individual is an illegal alien who had been deported twice and yet made his way back in and fell under the category of a gotaway and was here in Charlotte, then the other thought that came to my mind is, my goodness, it was less than a couple of weeks ago when everything in the news was
I don't think people should be getting on these
when the Border Patrol was here in Charlotte
with weapons on them. You know, you shouldn't be getting on with knives
and many of our elected leaders
or
in
any
Charlotte
weapons.
were really just coming out against the Border Patrol being here. And I was
They
one
could
of the
solve that
voices that
easily
was
by putting
saying,
metal
we need to
detectors.
support our law enforcement, and we also need to make sure that everyone understands that they have their own intelligence and they're looking for individuals just like this. And it is a crying shame when we see another tragedy like this that has to get our attention. And I really wish that our local leaders would continue to speak up and support Border Patrol and ICE agents doing their job here in Charlotte.
What do you say to folks and your constituents there nearby who say essentially public transit may have failed them, security may have failed them for this to happen 2 times within a matter of months? What do you say to them?
I think it's a major concern, and I do think that it's trying to be addressed, but it's not being addressed quick enough. I was one, along with 2 other colleagues, sent a letter to the governor just a few weeks ago asking for the National Guard to be brought into Charlotte because of what the Fraternal Order of Police had pointed out, that we were some 270 plus policemen under where we needed to be to adequately carry out policing in the city of Charlotte. We had seen an uptick in crime, particularly a 200% increase in Uptown with the number of murders. And so with these kind of things that were happening, we were calling for the National Guard that had success in Memphis, that had success in Washington, D.C., to be a short-term fix to at least help us so that our police could do their job in a more effective way while there was a longer-term solution being developed. But the governor completely ignored that. He hasn't been interested at all. Some city leaders saying we don't need that. So I think that the citizens need to continue to speak out, and the citizens need to demand that we get this situation under control. Enough is enough, Josh. And I think the citizens are really recognizing it.
And you're looking at some of the video here from.
I mean, I thought they had officers in those trains.
Ago, they're on the light rail again.
Did they stop? Did they stop
Do you
that?
think that immigration enforcement alone
I thought they had
can
officers in the
address
trains.
public safety risks, or are there going to be additional approaches that are needed?
I think there are going to be additional approaches. Charlotte-Mecklenburg just approved a tax increase, actually a sales tax increase, and some of that money is going to be used to build security on the light rail, from what I'm being told by business leaders. There's going to take a multifaceted approach to really get crime under control in Charlotte. And I do think that the Border Patrol and having ICE agents do their job is certainly going to be an effective part. I learned in the midst of the Border Patrol being here that it's estimated there's 100,000 illegal aliens in Mecklenburg County alone. Obviously, this gentleman was one of them that needed to be caught. And it's unfortunate that, and I'm grateful. Listen, I'm grateful there was a good Samaritan on board that stood up to him. He was actually yelling at an elderly person and going off on them when this individual stepped in that ended up getting stabbed. But I am thankful that he stepped in and was able to take it at that particular point. Had it been the elderly person, this might have had a very different end in a murder. But right now, this person has been charged with, I think, 5 different counts, including attempted first-degree murder.
Wow.
When you talk about Good Samaritans, of course, there were a lot of folks who did witness the attack that happened back in August. But there weren't a lot of people, that did stand up. We kind of watched as it played out in the surveillance video.
But
However,
if they
this
would have
time,
screamed or
as you
something, he might
mentioned,
have
there
came and
is
attacked
a
them.
Good Samaritan who kind of stepped up to stop the situation from getting even worse and escalating. What do you say to that person specifically?
Well, to that person that stepped up, I say, God bless you. Thank you for being willing to speak up and encounter it. I think that we need more folks like that. Of course, again, we've seen policies like what happened to Daniel Penny in New York that caused a lot of folks to maybe step back and say,
Yeah, but look at the hell he had to go through.
And I recognize that.
That's
But I
crazy.
think there was a real outcry when, as you mentioned, Irina Zarutska went through what she did, and there were lots of people on the train. Nobody stepped up. But this individual saw an elderly person being verbally accosted by this individual, and I'm very grateful that they were willing to step up.
Congressman, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and help discuss this further. Of course, the investigation ongoing, so I'm sure we'll find out a lot more as the days progress. Is there anything we missed? Anything you want to make sure to add here before I let you go?
Well, Josh, I just thank you for reporting on this. I think that's something that people are recognizing. And again, we just believe it's important for Border Patrol to be supported, not discouraged by leadership in a city when they come in to do their job. They are our law enforcement, and they're helping get the job done. And I'm very grateful for them.
All right. Congressman Mark Harris there, Republican out of North Carolina. Thank you so much for being here with us. We definitely appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, let's keep it moving with some Benny Johnson.
Please, sir, I want some more. What? Please, sir, I want some more. More? Snatch him! Hold him! Scout him! Bounce him! Bounce him! Pick him up and bounce him!
No.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. Things are not going great for Voldemort Zelensky. His chief of staff has resigned after getting his home and office and federal building raided by anti-corruption investigators, and 70 members of Zelensky's party in Ukraine also raided. This is the widest ranging raid for anti-corruption agencies in the history of Ukraine, which is the most corrupt country in Europe. So it's a huge blow for Zelensky. Andrei Yermak is the individual who apparently has provable hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud against the American taxpayer for stealing money that we send them there to fight the war. Not doing a great job of that. This is, of course, a massive blow for Zelensky, who is probably doing some massive blow right now because things are really intensifying against him as the corporate media begins to turn. You knew this was going to happen against Zelensky and his
I knew the truth was
team.
going to come out.
Once the money stopped rolling, once peace deal was on the horizon, once they didn't need a actor anymore as president of Ukraine, which is exactly what Zelensky is, and a failed comedian, they were going to throw him overboard, as they always do. Zelensky's government sabotaged oversight, allowing corruption to fester, says the New York Times. Ooh, boy. Here we go. Ukrainian leaders blame independent advisors for failing to prevent graft. A Times investigation found the President Volodymyr Zelensky's own administration removed guardrails. Ooh. When Russian troops invaded Ukraine, Kiev's Western allies face a dilemma. How do you spend billions supporting a government fighting Russia without watching the money vanish into the pockets of corrupt managers and government officials? The stakes were high because Ukraine's vital wartime industries, power distribution, weapons purchase, nuclear energy, were controlled by state-owned companies that have long served as piggy banks for the country's elites. To protect their money, the United States and European nations insisted on oversight. They required Ukraine to allow groups and outside efforts to watch for corruption. Over the past 4 years, New York Times investigation found Ukrainian government systematically sabotaged that oversight, allowing graft to flourish. Zelensky's administration has stacked boards with loyalists, left seats empty, stalled them from being set up at all. and kept the government in control, allowing hundreds of millions of dollars to be spent without outsiders poking around. Supervisory boards serve as essential oversight for function, allowing independent experts, typically from other countries, to scrutinize major decisions, Ukrainian state-owned companies. Ooh. Do you understand like how crazy this is? The New York Times is writing sentences like this, that they are finally doing a 4-year investigation. This just proves they were always planning on kicking this guy out. This just proves they always had a pull ripcord in case of emergency. Central to the corruption scandal swirling around Mr. Zelensky's government, anti-corruption authorities accused members of his inner circle of siphoning off and laundering hundreds of millions of dollars from the state-owned nuclear company, Energom. Mr. Zelensky's administration has blamed Energom's supervisory board of failing to stop corruption, but Mr. Zelensky's government itself that neutered their supervisory board, the Times found. In documents and interviews with 20 Western and Ukrainian officials that have worked closely with the company's board, the Times found political interference not only at the company, but also at state-owned electricity companies, Ukraine's defense procurement agency. People spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss confidential deliberation. An advisor for Mr. Zelensky declined to comment, saying that this isn't the president's responsibility. Well, yeah, it is, dude. You got billions of dollars from America. You promised that it was being spent wisely. We all knew that it was being stolen, and there was like massive corruption that was going on. And Zelensky just literally blew it out his nose.
We knew this.
Ukraine and
I knew this forever.
New York Times
I spoke
concludes.
upon this for so
They
long.
knew this was going on for years. They've just decided
I've been talking about this for years.
He's going to go the way of Gaddafi. Zelensky systematically sabotaged the anti-corruption
I
with
knew
the
this
deep state
guy was a
knives out
fraud.
amid the golden toilet farce. Is this the end? This reminder, Zelensky had a golden toilet installed because Ukraine is so poor and can't afford the war, and America needs to subsidize all of it. New York Times investigation found that Zelensky administration was systematically undermining West-mandated oversight to prevent corruption. To reassure donors who funded critical sectors of energy, arms procurement, and nuclear power, Ukraine agreed to allow independent oversight.
I'm pretty sure he
The
might
interference allows corruption
want
to
to take that
thrive.
toilet with him.
Western donors prioritizing Ukraine's war effort have reluctantly tolerated these practices. However, the scandals now threaten Kyiv's access to
Hell
crucial
yeah.
reconstruction
Gonna take
funding
over that
and
country.
weakens the case for EU
Instead
and
of
NATO.
Russia invading it, it's
Clearly,
going to be
the New
the
York
U.S.
Times would never have
to
published
go
this
in and
article
invade
unless it had been
and
instructed
take
to
over
do so by
Ukraine.
whoever gives orders these days. We don't know who these people are, but the signal is hard to ignore. Zelensky and his gang seem to be methodically lying down the toilet. It is also clear that someone wants Ukraine to accept Russia's current demands as soon as possible, because the current rate, there will be no more Ukraine left. Everything is collapsing for Zelensky. Everything is collapsing for Zelensky. A New York Times piece, and of course the globalist paper of record, is the perfect sign. Also, Don Jr. here speaking in Doha, talking about Ukrainian corruption, how obvious it is to anybody who can just have a set of eyeballs and a functional brainstem in Europe. Here we go.
One of the most amazing things I got to witness, I was this summer with my beautiful girlfriend Bettina in Monaco, and we were driving around, and on an average day, 50% of the supercars, the Bugattis, the Ferraris, this, all had Ukrainian plates. Do we think that was actually earned in Ukraine? I'd been to Ukraine 20 years ago. It wasn't like there was a plethora of wealth there. And yet you see the number 2 there getting arrested for stealing hundreds of millions of dollars. You hear all the rumors about what's going on. When I see every license plate on a supercar in Monaco being Bugattis, the rich fled. They let what they believed to be the peasant class fight these wars. And there was no incentive to stop, because as long as the money train was coming and they were stealing it and no one was auditing anything, the leaders, the decision makers, there was no reason for them to ever come to peace. No different than Putin. It wasn't the son of oligarchs that were fighting these wars. It's someone from Siberia that they're sending there. And he utilized the war to rebuild his manufacturing base. It was very clear that the sanctions that we put on did nothing to actually help. All it did was jack up the price of oil, which allowed him to basically pay for the war with the delta between the two while building up his manufacturing base. There was no incentive for anyone to ever get to the table.
He would make
Zelensky,
a good
he wouldn't
vice
win another
president,
election
to be
again, and they
honest
were
with you,
continuing to steal.
Barry.
Putin was building up his manufacturing base,
Like, if
and
he
all
was
we
to
had in the
run
way was
with
millions of young men dying for nothing.
Yeah, dude. When you're getting
be a
headlines like
smart
this
move.
in corporate media and headlines like this in corporate media, your days are numbered. Days are numbered. Devastating corruption investigation finds Zelensky administration systematically weakened the protections. These revelations essentially mean that certainly large chunks of the loans to Ukraine will end up stolen by Zelensky's favorite elites. Bad news for Europe, but even worse news for Ukrainian soldiers who rely on the money to fight Russia. Why are they telling the truth now? It's the obvious question. They've given up. If the New York Times is admitting this now, there must be some real stuff going down. The least surprising revelation ever, New York Times, which has vocally and vehemently championed Zelensky and financing of Ukraine, documents how Zelensky and his top aides facilitated the stealing of billions. Oh, you know what? That's how you know. That's how you know. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe. It's over for Zelensky. I've been saying it for weeks. It's over. I'm saying it.
I'm happy. You know, I mean, I knew all this a long time ago. I got in trouble on YouTube for talking too much truth on my channel. So it's funny how the tables have turned and everything I said is so true. And yeah, it's you know, the American people have been swindled big time. And you know who we have to thank? Thank Biden. Thank Obama. Thank Biden. Say thank you. Thank you, Clintons. You guys are so cool. You guys are so awesome. Yeah, remember Epstein? He plays a big role in Ukraine. Yeah. It's gonna all come out. It's all gonna come out. And that's why Zelensky needs to pick another place to go live. Don't bring that motherfucker here to the United States. We don't want him. Trust me, we don't want that. Send them somewhere else, but not here, please. You know, because if Biden was president, he would have probably taken him in under his wing. Like, yes, come here. Here's another check. I wrote you a couple of checks. I don't even have to sign on it anymore. I have this thing over here that's just signs for me. Oh, man. It's evil. Such an evil. We were so deceived. The country was so hypnotized, you know, because that's Project Bluebeam, and a lot of people, they played with their emotions and their feelings, and you know, and they use race a lot to do this and stir up the pot and get people emotionally invested. Which in reality, when you're looking from the outside in, we're so little that it's like it doesn't make any sense, you know? But I see things from outside in, and I just see how little, we're not even a dot. You can't even see us from space. That's how little we are. That's how little we are. But people think they're big and they got a voice and they can say and do, and it's going to make a difference. Nope, it's not. You're not part of the 1%, bitch. It's not. We're part of the peasants. Eat your Campbells and shut the fuck up. Yeah, but I heard it's not real meat. Shut up. Eat your Campbell's chicken noodles. Whatever, real fake meats. It's whatever we give you, you eat. Yeah. Okay. And then everybody's like, where's Jesus? I'm like, the books you're reading is not the full Bible. It's not the Bible. The real Bible is under in the basement, the Vatican. It's at the Vatican. It's in the basement. And humanity is not allowed to read it. It's just too much that it just, like, the gig is up type of thing, you know? That's what it is. But they're not going to release that to the people. Oh, no. Nope. You're not worthy. For sure. Yeah. And they really hypnotized a lot of people. They got everyone. Everyone is like caught up in the hypnotist. Like you guys are just following the orders, the plans, everything you say and do is all controlled. It's like you gotta have a job. You gotta go to work and earn a living, a certain wage to get you through life. It's like, all right, you did a slave of a job this week, so we're gonna pay you this amount, and you survive with that amount, but you gotta come back next week, because you'll get in trouble if you don't come back next week. Yeah, they put the fear in you. Yeah, and then they give you your dues, little drop in the bucket. Now survive on that. Not easy. Let's see here. Vice President is a good idea. Yeah. Until JD runs 2 terms first. Yeah. Yep. That's what I'm saying. Well, in those 2 terms, Don Jr. could be vice president, right? And learn and build and develop, and then take over, and run as president. His brother will be like probably ready by that time and be able to maybe possibly be able to run for president after Don Jr. is done. And that would be amazing, Eric, I don't know if Eric would make it as president, but I know the little one, what's his name? Baron. Yeah, that's why it has to run its course. So you got like the 8 years of JD, and then 8 years of Don Jr., and then here comes Byron knocking on the doors, getting ready, stirring up the waters. And trust me, he will stir up the waters and make a big impactful run. And he will be almost as his father. His father is one of a kind. I think Byron would be also a one of a kind. Yeah, 36 is good number. Yeah, 36 not a bad number. A young president. We haven't had a young president in a very long time. We got to go back to the Kennedy. As a young president. I mean Bush Jr., but Bush Jr. was a little bit older. I mean, we're talking about 36. That's young. Yeah, JD's 41. Yeah. And that's young. But I mean, as president, 36. JD's vice president. He's 41. But as president at 36, Byron would break records. He'll shatter them. He's yeah. I wonder what people are gonna think then. Oh, he can't be king. That's the Lion King right there. He's going through a whole process. He's pretty much being groomed up. You know what I mean? He's being groomed up, and when it's time, he'll be like he'll be ready. He'll be ready, and he'll have his own approach to things, and we'll see what happens. I mean, the future for you guys, I don't know if I'll be around at that time, but the future would be very interesting if he does run and wins presidency. Holy shit, that would be so fucking cool for the future. Because the future would be more promising, you know. If you get a Democrat in there, oh Lord, we're going back to hell. Going back to hell in a handbasket. Here you go, Dorothy. Get ready for the fucking tornado that's coming to get you. Like, oh no. Like, tornado gets you. Oh. Yeah. It's just it's wild, you know? Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean JD, he's a young guy. You know, he has his little beard and stuff. But you know, it makes him look a little bit more mature. You know, as a younger guy, being vice president, and then you know the Democrats already have their talking points for the next, you know, for the next presidency, because they're gonna go and they're gonna talk a lot. And I already see this, right? They're gonna be talking a lot about the strikes in Venezuela and the boats that they're blowing up, and you know why he didn't interfere or stop that from happening, and they're gonna try to use it against him. And the Democrats, listen, they slick, but they're not slick like Rick. Hell no. But they're already using and trying to figure out talking points for 28, you know, and I already see what the Democrats are going to try to project and try to wire people's emotions and feelings, which is very manipulative. That's why they pay so much money for media, and they try to be in media so much, because they try to infiltrate, you know, and try to brainwash you with their propaganda. It's weird. I was like, fuck that shit. Just weird times. You're gonna see the Dems getting into office anytime. No, I don't. I hope, like, you know, I told. Listen, I've been saying a long time that these voting machines need to be audited. You know, they need to be properly audited and properly, you know, vetted, because I just feel like votes can be, anything connected to the internet can be manipulated. You know, I've been saying that forever, and I believe it. I believe anything connected to the internet can be manipulated, easily manipulated. But that's what the future is going to. You guys are going into the AI future. You know, it's weird how we grew up, you know, from the 80s into now 2025 going to 2026. And, you know, once I'm dead and you guys are watching me and you're like, holy shit, this motherfucker's dead. And we're watching him. That's fucking cool. Thank you very much. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and tell your friends to subscribe. Even if I'm dead, you guys have years of watching me. Like a long, you guys got a big library for sure, and we're talking about a lot. I don't even know how many videos I have up. Probably in the 900s. Not like Tyson. Tyson has over like 1,300 videos uploaded. I'm like, not me. Let me see. Yeah, 908. 908 uploaded videos and 518 subscribers. Thank you very much for my 518 loyal subscribers. I truly treasure it. Appreciate it. Let me see if there's anything breaking. Because I feel like I'm waiting for something. It's like, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? F you. I don't know what I'm waiting for, but I'm waiting for something. I'm definitely waiting for something. And I don't know what. We do have one last video. I don't think I have a... I don't know if I'm looking for a +1. Yeah, the Democrats really want to use that cost growth for video of second U.S. strike on alleged drug boat. You see, and then there's a video here. U.S. Coast Guard nabbed more than 2,000 pounds. No, yeah, 20,000 pounds of cocaine from narco terrorists. You know, that's what. Like here, I can show it to you guys. And just pop it up. Let's see here. Give me a second while I get it all set up. Tab. Let's make that big. And then after that, let me see, what's this? After that, we'll wrap it up for the night. And then we'll relax and enjoy our Sunday night. I know I want to get to bed early. I got a lot of things to do tomorrow. Got a busy day tomorrow. Okay. Let's go ahead and cancel that. Let's sharing there. Set this back up. Like a whole process. When StreamYard starts messing up the videos, you gotta like redo everything. 9 tomorrow? Right on. Okay. Shit. I don't need their music shit. But this is the gunshots. So they shot behind the boat. So they're intercepting this boat. They're intercepting them. So this is what the Democrats want you to do every single time you catch a boat. I'm pretty sure what he's trying to do is like disable the engine, like so they won't be able to take off on them. I think that's why the shooting that he was shooting at the engine. No, here comes the. Is that the Coast Guard? No, that's not. Is that Coast Guard? Yeah, I think that is Coast Guard, but it's the police. It's the military side of the Coast Guard, I believe. Yeah, U.S. Coast Guard. Now they gotta go and get the people. See, there's 2 people up in the front. There's people up in the front. See all the gallons of gas that they were going to use for the trip. And they got all the drugs there too. This is crazy. That and remember, you got to do that. And this is in the Pacific. That is in the Pacific. That's crazy. That's crazy, right? That's in the Pacific side. That's over by California, out that way. What they call Mexicali. Down that area, the drugs that are just coming up, and they're catching up to them, and they're lucky that they get to live because they've been killing these people. So these people who just got captured, they're thinking like God that they're alive because they could be just dead because all they do is shoot a rocket and blow the whole shit up. Yeah. But they want to show you, they have to go through all this stuff and put yourself at risk, jump on the boat, and then capture these people at gunpoint and arrest them all. It's not easy, and it's very dangerous, and things could go sideways. But anyhow, let's go ahead and watch the last video of the night. And that comes as courtesy from Tyson De La Cruz. So let's go ahead and watch and enjoy.
So devastating to see how incompetent our city is.
America, this is absolutely insane. Gavin Newsom
Yeah, they were heading for Cali.
his 2028 presidential run, while Pacific Palisades fire victims are still living in hotels because not one single home has been rebuilt in 11 months. We're talking about a governor whose policies literally caused the fires by protecting endangered weeds over human safety, then created a bureaucratic nightmare that's prevented any meaningful reconstruction. And now, get this, California is facing an $18 billion budget deficit that is $5 billion worse than Gavin Newsom originally projected. But somehow this disaster of a governor thinks he's qualified to run the entire United States. 0 homes rebuilt, billions in deficits, and he wants to be promoted to the White House.
It's interesting. I've been on a journey like most people, feeling great, feeling stressed, feeling doubtful. The last 2 days, I don't know what it is. I think it's maybe the dust settling after Madison Square Garden.
What is up, guys? Tyson De La Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This is the most delusional political move that I've ever seen. Running for president while your state burns and your budget collapses. Let me start with the smoking gun that proves Newsom's environmental extremists directly caused the most destructive fires in California history.
California State Parks wildfire mitigation team reportedly instructed officials to let the Topanga State Park, quote, burn in a wildfire event in order to restore the natural ecosystem. The document was reportedly issued just weeks before the January 7th wildfire and could have prevented local firefighters from fully extinguishing an earlier blaze.
And they specifically said to keep this information secret to the public. This is criminal negligence disguised as environmental policy.
The protection of the brushweed, like this plant called the milk vetch plant, is actually protected. So they're not supposed to remove this. And they're finding that that brush helped burn and spread these fires faster.
While President Trump was telling California for years to clear out the brush, Newsom's environmental extremists were protecting a weed called milk vetch whatever that is, that actually helped the fires burn and spread faster. They prioritized an endangered plant and some fish over human life and property. Newsom's policies didn't just fail to prevent the fires, they actively contribute to making them worse. Now let's talk about what happened after Newsom's policies caused the fires, because this shows his complete incompetence at basic government functions.
Here we are over 10 months later. How many homes in the area have been rebuilt, and have you been able to get a permit to rebuild your home?
So I would say I've driven around the neighborhood a few times, and there's not one single home built 100%.
11 months, you guys. 11 freaking months after the fires destroyed 7,000 buildings. Not one single home has been completely rebuilt. Not one. This is a complete failure of government leadership that should disqualify anybody from higher office.
President Trump came out right after the fires and basically put his finger in her chest and said, hey, get these permits through fast. And she's all talk and no action.
Nothing, absolutely nothing has changed. The same bureaucratic hoops, the same delays, no additional staffing, pure government incompetence.
Palisades fire victims were in tears as the council delayed a vote to waive construction fees almost 11 months after that deadly fire.
Almost a year freaking later, these people lost everything, and Newsom's government is still nickel and diming them for permits.
Both reports will have a major fiscal impact.
Council members now weighing two possible plans, one costing the city an estimated $86 million, waiving fees for single-family home rebuild.
The city council is debating between an $86 million fee waiver and a $280 million proposal while wildfire victims live in hotels. This is the kind of bureaucratic paralysis that defines Newsom's California. Endless meetings, no action, and no results. Now let me tell you about the real human cost of Newsom's failed leadership, because these aren't just statistics. These are American families whose lives have been destroyed by government incompetence.
People moved out of state. They moved to Texas. They moved to Montana. They moved to Tennessee. They're done with California. Because of the mismanagement.
This is a direct result of Newsom's mismanagement before, during, and after the fires.
We did not ask for this fire. We just want to rebuild. We're not looking for anything fancy. We're looking for the city to stand up and do their part.
Guys, this is absolutely heartbreaking. American citizens begging their government to do their basic job to help them rebuild after a disaster. One fire survivor said he's hesitant to rebuild because nobody on his street is rebuilding. Even if he rebuilds, he'll be living in a fire zone with no neighbors because Newsom's government has made the process so impossible that entire communities are just giving up. This is what happens when you have a governor who is more interested in presidential policies than actually governing. While Gavin Newsom is planning campaign strategies, fire victims are living in hotels and temporary housing with no end in sight. While Newsom is dreaming about the White House, his state is facing a massive budget deficit that perfectly illustrates his fiscal incompetence.
And California is facing a major budget deficit next year. The California Legislative Analyst's Office is predicting a budget shortfall of almost $18 billion.
This is nothing new for California, but California is facing an $18 billion budget deficit next year. That is $5 billion worse than what Newsom initially projected. This is what happens when you have a governor who cannot do basic math or manage a budget.
July through October, our revenues are running roughly $6 billion ahead of where we projected we were going to be when the Budget Act was passed.
Revenues will not make up for how much the state is spending.
Unfortunately, state spending is also growing commensurately, but also that doesn't address the long-term structural imbalance between revenues and expenditures.
The state has a long-term structure and balance between revenues and expenditures, which is bureaucratic speak for we spend more money than we have every single year. This is the fiscal management record Newsom wants to bring to the federal government. I want you guys to imagine, just imagine what he would do with the national debt with this kind of reckless spending mentality. California has the highest taxes in the nation and still can't balance its budget. That's Newsom's motto. He wants to export to America.
No water.
That's for you, because the timing of Newsom's presidential announcement couldn't even be more tone deaf. California simultaneously dealing with the aftermath of one of the most destructive fires in history and facing the large deficit in recent memory. Fire victims
Not
can't
one house
rebuild their
built back.
homes, and the state can't balance its books.
Not
This
one
is the
house
perfect
built.
storm of government failure. But instead of focusing on solving these crises, Newsom is positioning himself for a 2028 presidential run. He's literally campaigning for a promotion while his current job performance is a unmitigated disaster. The fire rebuild failure shows he can't manage basic government services. The budget deficit shows that he can't handle fiscal responsibility. The combination of this shows he's completely unqualified for higher office.
We need to take a hard look at programs that were established, particularly in those years when we had surpluses, to assess whether they're accomplishing what was intended to accomplish when they were set up. And also, importantly, their sustainability.
This is classic progressive governance. Expand government during good times, then face fiscal crisis when it hits reality. Newsom created this mess by expanding government programs without considering long-term costs. Now he wants to do the same thing to the federal government, creating unsustainable programs that future generations will unfortunately have to pay for. So let me ask the obvious question. How can someone with Gavin Newsom's record of catastrophic failures possibly think that they're qualified to be president? This is a man who environmental policies directly contribute to the most destructive fires in California history. His bureaucratic incompetence has prevented a single home from being built in 11 months. His fiscal irresponsibility created an $18 billion deficit despite record tax apparent office. Newsom looks at this disaster he created in California and thinks, this is exactly what America needs. The timing of presidential positioning is particularly insulting to fire victims who are still living in hotels while he's planning campaign strategies. They can't rebuild their homes, but he's already building his political future. This shows the fundamental problem with career politicians will support his campaign despite his obvious failures. They'll ignore the fires, the rebuild disaster, and the budget.
You know what? I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
America, Gavin Newsom's presidential ambitions while California burns and his budget collapses is the most tone-deaf political move in recent memory. Not one home rebuilt in 11 months, an $18 billion budget deficit, that's $5 billion worse than projected, fire victims living in hotels while bureaucrats debate permit fees. This is his record of quote-unquote success that supposedly qualifies him for the White House. His environmental extremism caused preventable fires by protecting weeds over human safety. His bureaucratic incompetence prevented meaningful responsibility, created massive deficits despite the highest taxes in America. The fact that fire victims are permanently leaving California for other states just reaffirms his leadership. When people vote with their feet and abandon your state after a disaster, that is not a qualification for higher office. Budget get anywhere near the White House.
I know,
California's failure under Newsom should be a warning to America, not a future under his presidency. Zero homes rebuilt, $18 billion deficit, presidential dreams. This is the delusional arrogance of progressive politics in one perfect package. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Great upload. I wouldn't trust Gavin Newsom near the fries. I wouldn't even put him as the runner because they have a runner that runs the food to the cars. I wouldn't even have him do that. We could get him to do the trash. I mean, he's comfortable with trash. So get him to Gavin do the trash and the bathrooms. All right, guys, I'm wrapping it up. It was a good show. Had a good time. 3 hours in, and it was fun. So I am out of here. I don't trust Gavin Newsom. So it's Sunday. Let's end this off good. So have a good morning, good afternoon, and a good night. And I'll catch y'all on the flip side. And we'll do this again tomorrow. See what the news brings us. Every day is a new day. Every day we make mistakes, and I report on it. So with that said, have a good night. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.